awesome and definitely not
Good
stressed
afternoon,
about.
and welcome in to the SMITE Challenger Circuit. Fitch here, joined by Gore Miser. And Gore, we actually have an excellent set up here. We're going to be in Europe today, so I'm excited to hop in and see how these two teams are going to be playing.
Yeah, I'm always excited to be able to see this, and more so being able to see not belt slap for a couple of weeks. Every time we come in and see a belt slap set, it's fun to watch them, but you almost always know how things are going to go. When you come into something like Cold Llamas and Smileyface, everything's still a little bit up in the air, mainly because, at least for me, my favorite fact about Smileyface is the fact that they took that one game off of belt slap. Not a lot of teams can say they've done that this year, so they always have that dark horse energy in my eyes.
And I think that they should have that energy. I mean, maybe they are struggling a little bit at that 0-4 record. Cold Llamas looking a little bit better at 2-2. But I think these are two teams that both, are maybe a little bit better than what their records are showing. I think they certainly have that high end beyond what their records are showing. I mean, you and I were just talking about how Cold Llamas is certainly stacked with enough talent to where they could be only beneath a team like Belt Sap, right? But I don't know about Smileyface being that far away either. Once they're able to get everything clicking and making sure that they're, locked in as a team.
Mm-hmm. I will say, for Cold Llamas, I think for everybody in Europe, really, the bottom three, I think, it's just hard because Snake Pit is such a good roster. Same thing for Poppies, who have been playing together forever. Same thing for Beltsa. Like, you're just playing against what feels like constantly stacked rosters, and I think
no easy matchups.
When you look at Cold Llamas, they are almost exactly one of them. It's just sometimes not translating well into that game, and as you saw in their record, maybe not coming fully to light, so a win here would be really big for them, but I'm, obviously bigger for Smileyface because they'd get their first win.
Yeah, clearly coming into this one, I think needing a little bit of momentum is the Smileyface boys at this point. So I'm right there alongside you, Gore. Let's get ready to hop into those picks and bans for game number one. Looking like it'll be the Cold Llamas in that first pick position, Smileyface in the response pick. And Gore, I mean, the SEC has been a little bit different, I think, from what we've seen in the SPL in terms of those picks and bans. Sometimes some of those top priority picks that would never make it in at the SPL level do manage to find their way in because there's so many more sort of target bans that I feel like you have to do at the SEC level.
But what I remember of Smileyface, it gets even weirder, right? Because, Achilles, maybe not someone we're seeing banned, but somebody that we've seen be potent. Bakasura, pretty much in the same line, right? Where at this level, I think banning them makes sense. But when I'm looking towards, Mogao, sometimes he likes to play Nox solo. Doesn't always work for him, but he likes to play it. And it's things like that where you just have to, at least for Smileyface, factor in those weird off-meta picks. Bratz, one of the best performances we've seen from him this year, was on Vulcan during the playoffs. So there's always these little things where it's just like, okay, what are you going to bring out today? Because we can ban all of this stuff that is maybe pseudo-meta, at least for Europe, and it might not make a difference because you're going to pull out something weird anyway.
Well, Cold Llamas elect to take the Cthulhu in that top pick spot, Gore. Smileyface just banned down the tier list. Persephone, Emoja, Nemesis cannot be allowed in. Though it looks like Cold Llamas took a little bit more targeted direction with the Bakasura and the Achilles. Importantly, one of the best answers to Cthulhu, that Nemesis-Achilles combo with the Execute and her ultimate, that's not going to be available with them both being banned away. So this Cthulhu might go unchecked.
And that's a little scary. I actually really like, if you're going to ban the Achilles, you see Nemesis banned on the other side. And I love them going for Morrigan because they're just going to say, hey, if we're going to get Cthulhu, then we're not going to let you have the option to get a Cthulhu. There's no team fight shenanigans that can go on here. And again, tier list-wise, as of right now, I see Cthulhu Merlin, I'm scared. And how the Terra added in there, I think, is going to add in some much necessary and needed healing. If you're Cthulhu, you're already hard to kill. Now you're getting sustained from someone else on the front line with you, and I think it becomes much more of a nuisance.
Interesting. Smileyface, they have not exactly picked what I would call the most popular picks right now necessarily, but I'm a big fan of all of these picks. I mean, obviously Hercules, very, very strong, but I'm talking more specifically about the Agni and the Sobek. Gore, how are you feeling about the strength of those two picks, even though we don't see them all that often?
Well, the flexibility of both Hercules and Sobek means that either could go solo, either could go support. But let's be honest, we know exactly where they're going. It's going to be Sobek solo. At least it should be from what we've seen lately. It's going to be difficult otherwise, I think, to deal with that Cthulhu. Sobek, I think, tankiness could at least do something over there. But the Agni is the one that honestly, he's a good Divine Ruin applicator, whichever one you want to use. He's got decent damage, he's got good CC, and some good survivability. He doesn't necessarily bring it at the same level, I think, as you're going to see from other mages. You know, Merlin burns down objectives a little bit better. Other mages have better secure than the Agni does. But I think as a team fight mage, Agni fits right into literally any comp you want to put him in, because everything he does is, I mean, just right down the middle what you would expect a mage to be.
It'll be Mercury coming in next for Smileyface to give them a bit of a late-game hyper carry who can also show up control-wise in the early, but I don't know if this Mercury's going to have any time to try and control the early. This Thor on the side for Cold Llamas should be, you're thinking, what is setting the pace in the hands of Fails. Meanwhile, the set also being picked up now adds a little bit more thought to here. I got to think that this is going to be the set ADC at this point here, Gore, which we do occasionally see.
It's going to be interesting to see how it pans out, because, like you said, we've seen it a few times. I don't think we've seen it successful this year, so there's maybe a line that he's going to be riding here. Cold Llamas, again, a lot of good players on that roster that have a lot of history behind them, and I think their team fight gets a little ridiculous, especially two assassins that can dive back there. Cthulhu, Terra maybe buying them some space. It's going to tear up the backline of Smileyface, but there's a lot of peel, and then late game, a lot of one-shot potential there for Smileyface. It could just cause a lot of trouble for Cold Llamas if they find themselves in the wrong spot.
Certainly could. Decent control over there for the Smileyface boys as well. Perhaps that will be enough as we get ready to move it to game number 1 here in the SCC EU. And I think it is worth talking a little bit here about the Cthulhu and the Terra, because, you know, there was some chance, I thought, maybe a little bit, that this Terra might end up over there solo Cthulhu support. But right now, Gore, I really feel like you're getting the most value out of your Cthulhu over there in the solo lane in Maniac's hands.
Well, and I think you almost have to make this switch, right? We've seen Cthulhu just statistically perform better over there in solo. He gets a lot of farm that gets him item online so that when he does rotate into these fights, he's a couple of levels ahead already, but also already in that bruiser state where he's going to be able to dish out damage and stay alive. Because it sounds dumb to say it this way, but the best way to counter Cthulhu right now is just outright kill him.
Certainly would help, as Streak Up already in trouble in the early game. His beads were forced out, considered coming back in, but Hercules Kernino showing some prowess in the early game and already getting the better of Genetics and Streak Up in their level 1 1v1. Looks like the purple buff will be left alone for now as Smileyface and Cold Llamas meet together back over in the long lane. So this little bit of pressure, I mean, initially I would have said favoring Smileyface, but now some return damage coming back out. Genetics is low, but shouldn't be any kills coming from it as they regroup.
Just an assassin, even though they're not going to have the range that Echrome's going to be bringing on this Kerninos, it's still going to be a little bit better damage at level 1, which I think is going to be the issue Smileyface are going to have to deal with over here. I also think as Genetics levels up, you're going to find yourself in these awkward spots, specifically as Calvin, where you can get locked down before you can find your push. Right now at level 1, it's not happening, but at level 2s, level 3, you're going to start seeing not only that sustain come through, but stuns available, and Cold Llamas might be able to turn that aggression right back on its head. You're going to have to play different around set than pretty much any hunter that would be in this lane, especially because one gank, you know, from Thor, it's not just now Thor's on top of me. You have 2 assassins that are chasing you down, and they will just melt you if you give them the opportunity.
I wonder, you know, if that was communication we just saw from the Cold Llama's middle lane, that was, or rather from Smileyface's middle lane, because we saw Fails kind of start rotating over here to the left. It looked like Smileyface were going to go for this purple buff invade, but they dropped it. Now they're coming back to it when they know they don't have to worry about Fails rotating back over to try and help back out. Trying to contest this one is Genetics. Looks like the Hog was used to make sure that he gets it, so Genetics defending the purple buff. Meanwhile, Streak Up still over there in lane, getting a little bit of solo farm, so not a bad answer from the Cold Llamas.
Well, and Calvin has his Hog still available. They haven't gone for that purple buff just yet, and it's because they want these kills, Finch.
Streak Up is going to fall. Echrome able to find that first blood. Great push in, allowing for them to find this first kill over there for Smileyface. I don't think it's a surprise that the duo lane with a Terra in it got bullied the first 2 levels score, but still, you definitely want to hope you come away without giving up a kill.
Yeah, you want to, again, you just want to stay alive as long as possible. It's of course, that's always your goal, right? But at this point, if you're Genetics, if you're Streak Up, the longer you can kind of lay in wait in this lane, the better it gets. I don't know that Streak Up is going to find the same path as E-Chrome throughout the game. I think the Hunter, especially in this lane, if you're left in a 1v1, might just be able to come out on top more often than not. He's got a good root, good CC to keep himself self-peeled, but also just longer range, which usually, at least in terms of engage, is going to cause Streak Up to come into a fight a little bit lower health than E-Chrome will be. But until Genetics leaves the lane, now you're looking at a level 3 Terra. There's going to be, again, sustain, dashes, stuns, control in the lane for Cold Llamas. That theoretically should equalize things out. So if you're going to give up a kill, I guess at least it's only first blood. Hopefully from this point forward, it's not going to slip too far out of your hands.
I mean, you're right. They're definitely going to get stronger in that lane as Genetics levels up and gets more abilities online. Terra eventually becomes difficult to deal with over there in that long lane if she sticks around there to give Genetics some help. I wonder if we might see, though, some more work from this jungler from Smileyface. Does recognize 2 members there, but not charging up the Sonic Boom. Even with the ultimate, doesn't really have silenced move up, as it is silenced in the mid lane for them. I know it used to be brought there for them, but not here this time. As instead, we won't see any kind of ganks coming out from the Mercury, and instead he'll just chill. It's Veils instead who's looking for action. Does find the dunk down.
That's good.
Great wall to cut off Calvin and give no escape pass. Veils makes the gank work.
If you want to punish Hercules, that's what you got to do. You just essentially catch him when he's being aggressive. And I think Calvin will slow down a little bit now, but I mean, you know, it's almost one of those moments, is it going to be too late at that point, right? You've given up now a kill back over to the other lane. E-Chrome has benefited from all of it. He's the only one on that duo side of the map that's hit level 5 so far. So maybe a plus for your carry for Smileyface, but maybe a minus overall. I also think Hercules, and supports in general, at least from my experience, like, it sucks to lose your gold early on, but at the same time, having one death isn't the end of the world for you, and I think that's the same way Genetics would feel if he has to lose his life overall. It slows down your boots, it slows down your thieves, but at the end of the day, it's not going to be the make or break of your team. Streak Up having that death online for Cold Llamas, that's slowing him down. I mean, boots as well as that tier 1 mace tree, there's not a whole lot that he's bringing into the fight just yet.
No, we're still not quite to Streak Up's time. I think Streak Up's going to feel a lot better in this lane once those supports start rotating out, once Calvin and Genetics start getting involved more towards the middle of the map a little bit more often. That's where then he'll have this 1v1 up against the Hunter. And with Kernanos, maybe not the easiest. He'll have that lifesteal stance if he wants it, or additional damage. He'll have the option to drop that Wild Hunt at his feet. But usually I feel like we see set ADCs make their hay when they're kind of alone in the lane. They can bully as an assassin up against a Hunter before those Hunters are fully online.
Yeah, I'm wondering, especially now, hitting that level 5 mark, ult available. Streak Up had that tendency for aggression earlier, and we got to see the damage output him and Genetics had pretty early on. It's just that, like you said, that question of whether or not they want to get aggressive in there and maybe make that difference. Otherwise, he can maybe become like a third jungler. It's weird to think about it, right? You have your Thor already. Your support kind of becomes a secondary jungler. They just have the inability to clear camps. They really do just roam the map and look for ganks. But he could still run through, clear up some experience, maybe get aggressive into Smileyface, and force him to make some different decisions.
Looks like Genetics started as there's action over near the purple buff with that Oracle Chalice. I guess he's been trying to get down a little bit more vision. Smileyface were trying to get aggressive to strip away the purple buff, but fails. Not going to let them leave for free. The dunk lands on the backside, finds a priority target Chrome first, but there's some low members on Cold Llamas. Prime falls, but Fails is able to make sure they get a second kill as Silenced falls as well. A 2-for-1 in favor of Cold Llamas, and they're going to send Smileyface running. That's what a Thor can do.
I really like that Smileyface are able to get rid of Merlin just because it slows down that potential. Cold Llamas walk out of that with even just one kill, but Merlin alive, you could look for a Fury. Merlin not being there, their burn potential disappears with it. So 2-for-1 doesn't favor Smileyface whatsoever. It's mid for mid and carry, but at least they slow down any snowball potential afterward. It's a small silver lining.
No, I think that's a good point, especially in a world where they don't have a traditional hunter. I mean, this early in the game, Merlin is still probably just better for objective burn, but I'm with you in this world where they need that Merlin there if they want to look for those big objectives. So certainly Streak Up will be able to provide plenty of sustained DPS as well, but Merlin adds a lot to that, especially inside that fire stance. So Cold Llamas still, despite that fight perhaps going their way, are a little bit behind, down about 1,000 gold to Smileyface here at this point. They've had a pretty good early game with these repeated invades, and Cold Llamas have just been trying to find answers by bringing Fails over to the left side of the map.
And so far, it's been working. I mean, you know, Fails, especially early on, this is almost exactly what I want to see out of a Thor. You've got a semi-global ult, just stand somewhere safe in your jungle and then dunk down on them while they're being aggressive. They've got Hercules support, so you know they're going to be getting aggressive. And so you can kind of control the pace of the game by turning Smileyface's pace against them. Every time Calvin steps too far forward or every time Smileyface are looking for a fight, that just opens up Fails for the opportunity to catch them either on the retreat or with their pants down while they're getting aggressive, which is what happened to Calvin earlier around that purple buff. Every time they get aggressive, if that Thor ult is available, I like seeing Fails jump into it and just get into the fray.
That first Agni Bomb from Silence a little bit early. The camp hadn't been aggroed, so he ends up having to use 2 of those bombs. Not an issue if there is no fight, but of course, Fails wants there to be a fight. Sees the Mercury, but is not going to pull the trigger. He goes for Silenced instead over near Oracle. That gets the beads out from him, even though he's not going to be able to get the kill. So that means that this Agni a bit more vulnerable.
I love the way Silence plays it, though. I mean, immediately the beads, like, he knows what's coming, so he just sets himself up to stun Fails immediately to make sure that there's no kill potential. Otherwise, Fails is walking away very happy. That wall was about to come down, and you could feel the damage, or at least see the damage. That would have killed Silence off, no problem. And it's those little plays where you have to wonder, if you dive into 3 people on Smileyface, if you're able to get, you know, to the Mercury, is it better for you or is it worse for you now to have burned the beads? I think they're going to come out net positive because Silenced, Agni is safe-ish. He has a dash, but he's not the end-all be-all of safety when it comes down to mages. So he is still under threat, and I think this Thor is going to be able to keep up with him no problem.
Yeah, I agree. Let's get Agni that CC immunity back. I don't think that's what you said, but I want it to be what you said, so that's what I'm going to push for. Wow, tons of damage from the hammer from Fails, and that's going to take this Mercury out of the fight for now. Maniac forced into that ultimate is looking for Silence on the back of the fight. They know that he doesn't have beads. That was the work Fails put in earlier, but not going to be able to get that on his own is Maniac. Instead, he rejoins the squad where the hammer continues to wreak havoc. Now Calvin has to leave the fight, and this blue buff looks like a fitting prize for Cold Llamas after all their efforts to zone out Smileyface.
Well, now you've put me in a weird reminiscent state where I just remember every ability that used to have CC immunity on it. It was just, every god had CC, and every god had some sort of CC immunity, some of which not even being tied down to their ultimate. And Agni, you know, the minute that disappeared, he did drop heavily in terms of priority. Because he's just nowhere near as safe. That dash is still pretty long range, though. That's the thing that confuses me a little bit about it. When it comes to it, I think Agni, in my mind, is like the essential mage, right? I mean, he's got everything you want. He's got long-range stun. He's got good damage, good clear. He's got damage over time, so if you get Divine Ruin, it gets applied consistently. But it just comes down to the fact that, you know, there's stylized plays that do things a little bit better. Merlin burns down objectives better. You get Scylla, who just kills better. Agni is like that weird middle ground where he doesn't commit to either side. He is Switzerland of mages.
Well, I think it works out for him. Chrono's Pendant being picked up early. And this is one of those items that I wonder if maybe is even more of a feels thing for Agni, because you want those bombs up as often as possible. Yeah. I don't think there's anything quite as freeing when you're playing Agni as pretty reliably having one of those bombs coming up off cooldown. So maybe that's what he's looking for here. This is going to delay the pen in his build a little bit. As you can see, Prime already has it. But it's Smileyface that's starting up the objective. Wild Hunt is going to come out. Smileyface get the objective, and Genetics still trying to see if he can get aggressive. Sonic Boom is forced out from him, but Fails not here. Anvil of Dawn not on the way. I think Smileyface might be able to escape as Fails does finally try to close into the gap, but not going to make it there in time.
Dude, I'll drop 2 ults for a Gold Fear any day. You might lose Mogo in the process. Pretty Prime and the rest of the crew making a good rotation there, but honestly, it's still worth it. I mean, like Mogao, he's a Sobek. At the end of the day, I don't think it's going to be doing much. Not only is he a Sobek, but he's a Chronos Pendant Sobek, so it's absolutely worthwhile losing him to get yourself a Gold Fury for the rest of the team.
Yeah. I don't know, dude. You don't have to die there, though. They're going to take the Pyromancer in response. Our Cold Llamas. Maniac doing a good job zoning, so the boulder won't pose any issues here. So now, Instead of being this Gold Fury that Smileyface were able to sneak away, it is the Gold Fury, but you traded away Lamogao plus Pyromancer. So that does mean Cold Llamas answer back a little bit better, but still, close to a 2,000 gold lead for Smileyface. You're certainly not feeling bad.
Not at all. At this point, you're still, again, kind of coasting through the game. Mercury's got that Erendite online, so he's already going to start finding more ults, although we haven't really seen him get aggressive once this, I'm going to assume Rage, but any form of crit comes online for him. I expect Saraga to start getting more into these fights, because Calvin, especially after the early retaliation from Fails, hasn't really been that aggressive. The duo lane's been very quiet because Genetics is online and can stun you, slow you down. Streak Up's hit that point where he's got the Brawlers online, so it's hard to fight into the Assassin. It really is now, I think, on the back of Mogao once he finishes off whatever this hide is going to be, whether it's Urchin or what have you, or for Saraga to start getting aggressive, which I think he can lock down pretty prime. Not easily, but he can follow up that blink. He can make sure that this Merlin is uncomfortable throughout the rest of the laning phase.
That'll very likely gonna have to be his responsibility, I'm thinking, for Saraga here on this Mercury. He is going to have to make sure he can get to that back line and find basically pretty prime. Got to be the only one that's going to be back there, as Maniac is right in the thick of it all of a sudden. Is going to push them out, though. No overcommit here from Smileyface as Cold Llamas grouped up S4, control enough space. Way on the back of the fight, though, is Mogao, dropping down the charge praise and having a good time, but certainly not representing any immediate threat to that Cthulhu, so they'll just get right back over to their action. And it is interesting, I mean, you brought it up that he's going for this Chronos Pendant start. He also went with the Mage's Blessing. We saw Doug highlight that earlier for us in the broadcast. So this is a different type of Sobek solo build, but you can't quite do the Guardian's Blessing start like you used to. I don't know if you can just sit under a tower anymore. So maybe he's just trying to find a way to get more value out of this pick.
Well, it's definitely going to help him keep pace with Cthulhu, but again, I think you're trading out a lot, right? You don't necessarily have that tankiness Cthulhu's bringing. And, you know, I'm looking, again, any silver lining for Smileyface early on is going to be helpful. Fails, uses his ult, doesn't find anything, that's a great win for you. The problem is every time I think of all these little positives I can give to Smileyface, we come back over to Maniac, and I just think, oh yeah, Cthulhu, who's going to deal with that? And I don't have an answer. If I'm looking at Smileyface, I don't know where the burst damage, the control is going to come. Maybe Saraga's going to be enough, but that Breastplate of Valor, just those protections on that one item are going to be enough, I think, to cause some trouble for it, let alone the fact that you've got the Stone of Gaia, your Cthulhu period, so the damage return is still going to be solid. Your ult's going to kind of make Saraga second-guess getting in there. And I don't know if, you know, Kernanos is really known for melting them all. He does have that Prot Shred that has been slightly buffed coming into the midseason that I think is going to look better overall for Kernanos. But it's not the end-all be-all. It's just going to be one little thing in their favor. So this Atalanta's all of that protection. It's going to need payoff.
Yeah, hopping into that Autumn stance won't hurt him at all. Fails getting aggressive. The boulder, or rather the hammer, almost enough for the kill as Saraga has to respond by using the bead, so he makes his way out of there. Maniac has been plucked back, but again, certainly not the end of the world. Perhaps trying to get at that Stone of Gaia proc early while it has the least value before he's taken a whole bunch of damage. I mean, I could certainly see if that's part of the call for him. But they're not trying to commit to this Cthulhu there at all at this point. Peels him off, and again, just going to retreat.
I feel like that's going to be a phrase you say a lot. Not trying to commit to this Cthulhu, because I just don't know that they can. I'm waiting for Smileyface to show me that late game potential. But honestly, I think this might be their best bet. It is single target, lock down someone like Streak Up or Fails or Prime, and just make it so that Maniac, no matter what he does, isn't as worthwhile. You know, if he's just 0-0-0 the whole game, yeah, maybe you didn't, you know, shut him down, but he didn't really accomplish much for you, did he? So if you can keep him locked away, or at least under control, then I think things could help you out. But it's all on Calvin.
Calvin, I think you might be right about it all being on him, as he has suddenly become the center of attention. That blink in didn't get him a whole lot. Ultimate used to try and get out of there, but giving a kill over to Streak Up, who has had a slow game so far, is not a great look. Maniac pops the Thorns, goes to the ultimate. He really wants to take care of Saraga while he can, maybe get the ultimate out of him, but Saraga, remaining calm, does use the Sonic Boom eventually in order to disengage as Cold Llamas get the 1-for-0 pick. And now Fails getting aggressive. That dunk didn't really get much. Elects to leave. Cold Llamas no longer looking for aggression.
I can imagine Fails up in the sky thinking, I've got Hammer. I can scare him just a little bit. Like, I'm not gonna commit to this. It's gonna scare both Smileyface and my team, but I'm gonna go in on it, see what you can do. And I mean, at 2-0-3, the Store's obviously having a good time so far right now, or at least it seems like he is. He hasn't been able to accomplish as much with that ult in the last few minutes that we got to see in the first 10.
All right, so you got to be there for at least one of these, I'm thinking, right? If you're cold, Llamas,
it does
that is
help.
the second objective now of this game that has gone down. It's tough, man. Smileyface have so much burn potential, I feel like. Between this Mercury and the Kernos, they burn it so quickly. You got to make sure you're there because you don't have time to react to it. It's going to happen too quick.
It's amazing, actually. I feel like Cold Llamas, at least in my mind, should be the ones kind of dominating the objectives. They're dominating the fights, but Gold is definitely going against them, and now they're even making moves against Maniac.
Okay, so we were wondering who can kill this Cthulhu. I think Saraga's showing us that he's got the potential, right? It takes everyone getting him all alone without the ultimate, and then I think they can bring this man down. So they're going to take their backs while their Tier 1 tower still barely stands on the right side of the map. But you can tell Cold Llamas, even though they just lost Maniac, are looking for something, but they really can't afford to get aggressive.
I mean, you start up a Pyromancer here if you're Cold Llamas, and you already know everyone's on solo side. Gold Fury was just taken, so you can't get aggressive over there. It seems like Smileyface are going to be the ones that try to call the bluff. And this is where Mogao, he finishes off that high. It's so solid.
Fails, I think, stripped away that Pyromancer there with that hammer. Not bad at all. As really something needed to be done because all of the neutral objectives on the map were going the way of Smileyface. And eventually, Fails just kind of rolls his sleeves up and says, all right, we can't just let him have all of them. Tosses a hammer out there and at least gets the Pyro.
I mean, in my mind, I literally wrote that off. I was like, yep, there's nothing they can do. Cold Llama's like, you're just getting zoned out. If Genetics can run forward, maybe, but you're getting bullied right now by a Sobek. It just shows the power of Thor's hammer. And again, I think where Fails is, that's not only a huge win to strip that back, but it feels like Smileyface perpetually ahead, but never able to do anything with the lead, right? I mean, they've gotten all of the Furies so far. They haven't been able to get themselves a Pyromancer, now thanks to Fails, but it feels like they have control of the flow. They just can't do anything with it.
And you got to give Cold Llama some credit, right? A game where you've given up both Furies and you're only down 2,000 gold. I mean, that's pretty crazy when you think about it. I'm pretty sure they gave up First Blood as well, if I'm not mistaken. So really not a bad way for this game to have gone for Cold Llamas, considering all the things that should be contributing to Smileyface's lead. I mean, Cold Llamas made it to the 20-minute mark, and this game is basically tied. There's not really any significant experience gaps down there either, so this is still very much a close game.
Yeah, that's, again, it's just kind of amazing to me to see them. Cold Llamas, once the Assassins all join the fray, I like the fact that there's some upgraded shells, too, there on the side of Smileyface, but I feel like it's only going to do so much in slowing down someone like Fails or Prime or Streak Up, especially Prime, who's not going to care too much about your shell. It might slow down Streak Up for a little bit, but if he has to get through 4 autos, he's just going to ult and get through 4 autos. He's not going to have any qualms against continually fighting you. And so I think E-Chrome may be forced into kind of an awkward decision there. I mean, I don't think there's really a best in slot for that relic overall, no matter what you're going to be in kind of a threat of danger at any given time. And once we start seeing Streak Up rotate out, I think we've seen E-Chrome have a big impact, 1-1-1. His ult is massive. But I feel like Streak Up's going to be the one that is going to change the pace of the game. Silence is all of a sudden in trouble. Saraga may be peeled off or killed before he can do anything against Maniac. And if he can just sit on E-Chrome in the back line, you can either force the ult, force the relics, or get a kill. No matter what, you're happy.
Well, Mogao is getting a little bit aggressed on the middle lane, gets him back up from Silence, and that does get Cold Llamas out of there. One thing to note with this build, though, from Streak Up, he's going to have a ton of ability damage. I'd be on the lookout for Skewer to potentially be the main source of damage with all this pen online here for him. He has the Hydra, so he'll certainly get some swinging autos on the back of him. But this could potentially be scary trying to battle up against this 7. Pretty Prime has been pulled in. No follow-up, though, as Maniac goes into the ultimate. They've got the lockdown onto Mogao. Prime gets the first kill, Fails, gets the second as E-Chrome falls as well. And Gore, it's been in the back of your mind all game. What are they going to do about this Cthulhu? It looks like there's no answer.
Well, that's what I've been worried about, was when it comes down to team fights, how do you stop every person on Cold Llamas that's going to be a threat to you. I mean, how do you deal with Streak Up and Maniac and Fails? And then there's Genetics who's going to just do this, heal him right back up, tank the tower like it's nothing. This is where things fall apart for Smileyface. I think their late game siege potential is just low compared to what Cold Llamas bring.
Just a patient game from these guys, not overcommitting to anything, and now they're in a position where they can burn down mid Phoenix for free. I mean, Cold Llamas really, if you kind of think about what they have accomplished this game, it doesn't feel like they have a right to just suddenly walk down mid and take the mid Phoenix, but they have earned it, right? They've patiently played and not allowed Smileyface to get too far in the lead, and now at the team fight stage, as you've been worried about all game, the Cthulhu can group up together, the Set can group up, and all of a sudden, Smileyface don't really have a way to stop them from just WKing out.
Look, they did the European thing. They waited until 20 minutes was passed. I guess it's also the Sanguine thing if you're watching the SBL, where it's just wait till 20 minutes are done, group up, and win those fights. Don't care about anything prior to it. It doesn't matter if you're down, because that 2,000 gold lead that Smileyface had managed to grab and hold on to for what felt like the entire game, it's gone in literally the blink of an eye. I mean, you look down for a second, watch a team fight, you look up, and now all of a sudden they're no longer in control.
Smileyface continue their dominance of the Furies at the very least, but now that we're 23 minutes into the game, Cold Llama's attention is elsewhere on the map. That mid-Phoenix being down this early really is huge. Smileyface will have to contend with these fire minions in the middle lane as well, which are going to give Cold Llamas all these favorable skirmishes in the jungle, because they know a member has to be somewhere else dealing with all these minions. Not just yet, they're pushed up at the middle of the map, so Smileyface can deal with that there, but once these minions start pushing up further, Cold Llamas have all the advantage.
Now it's the, well, actually, awkward moment. You look at Cold Llamas, it's very easy to determine how a Fire Giant fight could go for him, how team fights will go for him. A lot of their ults pay into it in the way they play. I'm looking towards Smileyface as like, who can steal a Fire Giant? I think Calvin can, maybe E-Chrome can, maybe Silenced can as well. I mean, you've got some good long-range damage, but nothing that screams burst outside of that boulder to me. So they have to be very careful over here. Good groupings from Cold Llamas can also end up being a detriment to them if E-Chrome can get that wild hunt down. Polymorph 3-4 people, get a kill while they're polymorphed, at least on one, and it will help you out. Especially if it's Maniac, might help more if it's someone like Genetics or Fails to maybe control some of the CC that's going to come out of Cold Llamas. But you have to hope they group up, and that's just not a mistake you can bank on every time.
Not going to be making things easy for them out here. Take a look at this build from Silence. I was really curious about where he was going to go with this Agni, but Magus and Soul Reaver are excellent options. Has the flat pin on lock between Divine Ruin and Magus. The Soul Reaver is there for the percent pin. Wouldn't be surprised if something maybe like an Ob Shard or even a Mirrodin comes next for more percent pin, but Genetics is just locked down inside the walls. Those were his walls, and he was taking all that damage. Maniac responds, though, by becoming the Cthulhu monster, descending into madness, and trying to push the rest of Smileyface away. Fails. Went up into the ultimate, didn't find a decent target, and rejoins his squad. With Genetics having to back to base, Cold Llamas are backing up at least for now.
And it feels successful for Smileyface. That's 3 huge ults offline for Cold Llamas. Terra not having that healing that she can give to everybody. Maniac and Fails being without theirs means that the team fight can go a little smoother. But again, it still feels like an awkward fight to try and commit to. I think Maniac's still going to be able to accomplish a lot. I think now's the time he's most vulnerable, though, so it's a little easier, especially if Mogal can maybe strip him and lock him down like this.
There we go. They're going to need something from you, bud. You're their late-game guy. I saw you charging the Sonic Boom, but it's going to be harder if Genetics comes directly to you. Streak Up gets silenced, and E-Chrome with the quick double. Sonic Boom used defensively, and Saragax is going to have to take a seat. That's 3 for Cold Llamas. Who needs all the ultimates when Prime takes care of Calvin? Suddenly, out of nowhere, Cold Llamas have found the 4 for 0 and are maybe threatening to just end this game.
I mean, you've got 40 seconds, I guess technically 30 seconds there before Calvin comes back, but 40 before anybody big that's going to fight back against you comes through. This Phoenix should rise and fall in the blink of an eye, and Mogal's going to do everything in his power, but there's not a lot a single Sobek can do when you have 5 people barreling down the Titan.
No, I mean, he just should not be able to stop this, right? I mean, Lamoga will try his best to defend, but will just contribute to the DSI. Does get the return kill onto Prime, makes that KDA a little bit worse, but what a game here from Cold Llamas. One last celebratory ultimate from Maniac, and this one gets locked up. And Gore, we were talking about this pacing. We were talking about how Smileyface seemed to control the early objectives, seemed to be the teams making moves, but Fails had all those counter ganks in the early game, and suddenly Cold Llamas were able to just get aggressive in mid and take a Phoenix out of nowhere.
I think the strength for Smileyface was kind of revolving around that early, Hercules play style, and things, one, got countered by Fails. I think he made some great rotations over to the duo lane to make sure that Calvin felt, endangered over there. But once they stopped, Calvin as well as Saraga, you never got the true passing of the torch, which is what you expect to see. Hercules saying, all right, you know what? I'm not the setup anymore. I'm not the guy doing these things. Here, jungler, take over. It's your job now. I mean, it's 400 damage between them, and Hercules did more damage than the crit Mercury late game. You called it, I think, out, especially there at the end, where you were just saying, Saraga, like, everybody's waiting on you. You're the one that has to do something here. And we saw him at 1/4 HP, hit an ult, die almost immediately after. He just wasn't there for those late game fights. And unfortunately, that translates, I think, brings down E-Chrome and silence damage. You don't have much if you don't have setup, and they just didn't get it.
Unfortunate there for Smileyface. I mean, obviously, I think they were hoping that they'd eventually be able to get to that Mercury online. Maybe he could be the answer to that Cthulhu by bursting him down quickly with the sustained damage once he sticks to him, but that never came to fruition. Fails, stalled out that early game pretty nicely by dunking the Hercules over and over again, and then eventually at the group phase, Streak Up and Cthulhu were way too much of a problem. So that's game one here for a score. We're ready now to move on to game number two. Let's get those picks in bands on the screen. Smileyface will be in that first pick position this time, and some adjustments, Gore, are going to have to be made.
Yeah, I'm, if I'm Smileyface, maybe happy to take Cthulhu here, but I definitely don't want Cold Llamas getting it. But I'm trying to think, I mean, their bans were pretty standard last time. I don't think they need to change much there. They just have to be worried. I mean, not a lot. Like, I don't think set ADC is my priority. I don't know if I want to ban him. I don't know if I want to ban Thor, considering there's so many other junglers that are still available. I think Cold Llamas are in maybe the best position where they shone bright with a lot of things that aren't necessarily terrible, but they aren't the top of the top either. And that forces Smileyface to maybe make some awkward decisions here.
Looks like, though, as you predicted, these bans are going to stay basically the same. It's the Persephone Emoja and the Morrigan ban for Smileyface, the Nemesis Achille Bakasura ban for Cold Llamas, which should mean Smileyface can grab this Cthulhu. It's just a question of, are Cold Llamas going to prioritize that Thor in their top two picks again? Because I think that aside from the Cthulhu, that's probably one of the ones that if I'm Smileyface, I want Cold Llamas to have the least. So we'll see if maybe they have a chance to come back and prevent it, or if Cold Llamas go for it right away.
I actually don't like Cold Llamas banning Nemesis there, because, Nemesis Cthulhu, one of them's going to make it through if you ban the other. But I feel like you can leave Nemesis open, ban something away from Smileyface, maybe specifically Hercules slots in pretty well there as well, and then get yourself, Merlin Nemesis right here, or Amaterasu Nemesis, two things that are great at helping deal with Cthulhu. So I'm questioning that a little bit. I think it's going to be difficult to deal with Cthulhu, not that it's going to be completely out of hand. Because when you mention objectives, specifically with Merlin, yes, he burns down Fire Giant and Titans really well. He can burn down the Gold Furies really well. But I think he burns through tanks pretty well as well, and Cthulhu is nothing if not a giant target for him. So as long as you can maybe isolate him, lock him down, it's not going to be the most, well, I guess, stationary target. So he's going to be difficult to get all of your damage on. I still think it's a good amount of burn that can cause some trouble for Cthulhu.
So some big adjustments for Smileyface this time. They will grab the Rom, a traditional hunter, to take over there instead of the Kernos here this time, as well as the Scylla going to be going in the middle lane, plus they've got Cthulhu over in solo. But Cold Llamas made some adjustment too. I don't think we saw Amma picked or banned. Not sure if she was banned in the second round of bans or not, but certainly not in those first three bans or first three picks. And the Geb going to be coming in for Cold Llamas too, so this is a different look for them. This feels a little bit more mid towards maybe late game E for me for Cold Llamas. How do you feel about these top three picks from both teams?
The only one that stands out, especially as someone, maybe doesn't need to be top 6, but I think fits well into the top 6, grabbing a Geb, it's going to deal great damage, or I guess take great damage against crit because of his passive, reducing that. The shield, I think, is immense, especially against Cthulhu. I mean, think of it like a good little shell that is going to be coming through for a Merlin or potentially a Freya here that will stop Smileyface from either getting the complete lockdown, some stuns they need, or giving them that extra health they need to get through the fight. I really love the way Geb plays into things. I think Geb Freya as an early duo lane, though, is going to get just rolled over by Rom literally anything. I don't care what he's paired with. So they're going to not feel great for the first few minutes. But Cold Llamas, like you said, especially in the late game, it's insane to think of the damage output they're going to have.
It's going to be scary, and with this Freya, I mean, it's not even going to potentially take that long. You're certainly right. This early game, Freya is going to take a little while to get online, but once she should have plenty of push power and fighting power into this ROM. Unbots is the selection there for Cold Llamas, as the Thor was banned out by Smileyface in those second round of bans, so they'll elect to go with the Fear No Evil instead. But I think Cold Llamas have an excellent draft here. A lot of control between this Gab Ama and the Unbots, and plenty of damage between the Merlin Freya. I just wonder if maybe the carries being a little too magical. I mean, I don't know. As long as the Unbots is swinging, it shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, I think it is that diversification. I feel like Amaterasu does just enough damage as well as the Hunbat so that you can maybe find that balance, but it is definitely a concern. But when it comes to team fights, they also have the better ultimates there for Cold Llamas. I mean, Fear No Evil, You've got the Cataclysm from Geb. Those two alone are going to be able to help change the pace. Then you add in Dazzling Offensive coming out from Maniac. That is going to find a lot of stuns, burn a lot of beads, all sequentially if they use them properly, so you're never going to be able to find that overlap. Otherwise, you're looking at Calvin finding Plux, Saraga potentially able to find some good ults, but not a lot of single target control. Beads are still going to be helpful for Cold Llamas, but it's not necessarily the end-all be-all. They don't necessarily have the same CC potential, especially late game, as Cold Llamas.
We have moved into this second game, and Smileyface have got to show us something different from game number one, or I think Cold Llamas have a chance to end this thing in a hurry, Gore. I mean, this Freya, once she gets online, I mean, obviously once this Ama starts joining these team fights too, it feels a little bit mid to late to me from what Cold Llamas would likely want.
Yeah.
You know, like before they're ready to start really getting into the groove of things, but once they are, it could be hard to slow them down.
I mean, it feels like it's going to take the same trajectory for them as last game, right? Where it's just, we're chilling, then 20, 25 minutes into the game, Cold Llamas are just going to win a fight, and it's going to seemingly come out of nowhere, but it's just going to be because their gods scale better to that portion. And if you can't bother them early on, I mean, you've already got better clear, but if Calvin can't hit those Plux consistently, then I don't think Cold Llamas have anything to worry about, because the biggest detriment to them in this duo lane is their lack of clear right now, and if you can't kill them, it's not going to mean anything.
I mean, that should have at least gotten the beads out from Streak Up. Good patience from him to not overreact just off the sound cue from the charge frame, making sure that Calvin actually does connect. There, though, is a good pluck, and Genetics has now been slowed. The knockup, though, buys him some space, and Freya already doing some decent damage. E-Chrome, if it was unclear, is now starting to learn. Might not be great at clearing, but doing damage to that ROM, it's certainly ready. He read, though, the banish was there. Good roll from E-Chrome to not get pulled.
I think that's the perfect showcase. The thing that makes Freya deadly, and I think it's very confusing, getting power items online is solid for her. Obviously, Hecate right now is still a great, great item to pick up. But the thing that really is scary about Freya when it comes to late game, it's the attack speed. I think it's literally nothing other than the attack speed. She hits just as hard at level 2 as you just saw as she can at level 20. It's just at level 20, she's getting 5 autos out in the span of 3 autos that she's getting out at level 2. Right now, E-Chrome doesn't die in that scenario. In 10 minutes, E-Chrome dies in that scenario just with 1 attack speed item, let alone getting 2, 3. And that's the thing that I think makes her so deadly, is not just her scaling, but the amount of autos she gets off in a fight, along with some cooldown to maybe give her that Pulse Irradiate combo a little more often, it just is going to be an absolute nuisance. And so Streak Up, as long as he can play and kind of ride that curve appropriately, which, let's be honest, isn't hard to do as Freya, then I think it's just going to feel bad for Smileyface late game. They're going to have to commit a lot just to kill off Freya.
Yeah, then you got to worry about banish beads Aegis, and the second beads Aegis, that is her ultimate, that also allows her to deal damage from the sky. Not going to be the easiest thing in the world for them, but that is the task that they have been assigned by this Freya lock-in. Fails is nearby to try and help out with this potential blue buff invade, but so is Saraga, who sends him on his way. And I do think this is a good chance to talk a little bit about Saraga and this Mercury jungle for Smileyface. I mean, I think if they're going to win, they're going to need a lot more from him this game. I mean, obviously, lowest player damage in the game last time is one thing, but I mean, they also are going to need the control, the sonic booms, the setup, and obviously the damage as well, or this is going to be a pretty difficult game to win.
Again, it almost feels like last game, and it feels like the same points can apply here. If Smileyface, specifically Saraga, you know, this Mercury, I'm all for giving things a second chance, but I'm just going to say it straight up. Did not look too great in Game 1. It didn't really accomplish what you want out of a Mercury. There was one really good gank onto Maniac right after his ult was down that it made a big difference, but outside of that, I have almost no memory of anything Mercury did aggressively. A lot of defensive ults, getting him out of the fight. That's going to have to change here. I think Saraga is easily the one person, Mercury, maybe the only god in the game, who hits harder than Freya, faster than Freya, but he does it from closer range than Freya, so you have to be very careful how he gets in there. But as long as he finds, like you said, the beads, the Aegis, the other beads Aegis, that is the ult, the whoop, if you can get past all of those things, which is already a game in and of itself, he's going to 2-tap streak up. And that's the beauty of a late game Mercury. But the problem is that we were missing at late game, or last game I should say. I don't know if I can rely on that, right? I'm worried for Smileyface because it feels like that's a lot of commitment onto this Mercury that just wasn't there before.
Oh, I thought he was going to try to ult from the back, but no, we're not seeing it happen here from him. Good thinking from Genetics. He even blinked in. I wonder if he was concerned about that same thing. I wanted to make sure there was some backup there for streak up. Either way, though, we don't see him end up getting active. Saragaza, I mean, is going to be working on, it looks like, that Erendite next, which has become a pretty core item on Mercury. And we've been putting a lot of pressure on Saragaza, saying he's got to have a better performance this time than last time. But this time, they have other carries that I could say get close to the hyper carry level. I mean, Scylla does so much damage just with Crush and Sikkim in the late game, not to mention I'm a Monster, and Rom obviously gets to the Gatling gun stage of the game where he is just swinging once he's full slotted. So, I mean, still, they're definitely going to need him, but maybe it's not quite as much pressure on him as it was in that Game 1. It's hard to say. It really depends on how long or how late into their build Cold Llamas will let them get if the pace of the game stays this slow. I mean, if they get to 4 items relatively for free, then he'll have plenty of backup.
It's that awkward ebb and flow where Smileyface have, like you just highlighted, 3 great kill potential gods. And in my eyes, it almost doesn't depend on what they can do. It depends on fails.
Fear No Evil used, and that should help keep Genetics out of there. A little bit of trouble, though, for Saraga, narrowly avoiding Prime's damage. That leaves Fails in an awful position. Calvin finds first blood, and the first kill of the game for Smileyface as well. But Calvin might end up paying for it. Good use of this Lurk in the Waters. Should allow him to escape, comes out of it quickly so he can charge prey away from the Valkyrie's discretion from Streak Up. And I mean, Smileyface get their pick for free.
That's a good start. I mean, you get in. Granted, it goes onto your support more than anybody else, so maybe that's the one thing you would want to change. But you get the kill, and that's all that matters. And it's onto somebody that I think is going to change the pace of the game for Smileyface, right? I was trying to say it right as we went in there, and it almost worked out, but Fails, depending on these Fear No Evils and his aggression, who he decides to sit on and maybe remove from the game on the side of Smileyface, that can change who on Smileyface has to deal with one Freya, but also Pretty Prime and Genetics and Maniac, especially in those late game fights. As of now, it's going to work out for them, but I think once Fails gets a couple more items online, is hitting as hard as we've seen Hunbat's hit in the past, it's going to start changing their tune a little bit. Either way, a little bit of gold, that first blood bounty going towards Smileyface is strong. Granted, split across, or the gold and experience throughout the fight kind of split across 4 people there, grabbing those assists. I still think it's going to be nice for them just a leg up over Cold Llamas now. If they can get picks like that consistently through this early game, they can delay Cold Llamas' onset that is going to be their late game team fight.
still a small lead developing for Smileyface in the early game, the same way that we saw back in game 1. Gore, about 1,300 gold, about 1,700 experience, all in favor of Smileyface. And as well as we saw Cold Llama sort of bounce back from that small deficit in the first game, it does feel as though perhaps they'd be making life a little bit harder on themselves if they routinely give them up. But Smileyface are aggressive again. They're coming up for yet another red buff invade. Saraga in the back has the ultimate but isn't charging it yet. Looks like they were able to step in without having to commit any ultimate, so now they can retreat. Genetics trying to catch up, not going to get there in time, and Smileyface get away with another aggressive play.
Last game, it felt like a lot of neutral objective control from Smileyface that translated into Furies, whatever, to give you that 2,000 gold lead they eventually ended up losing, and again, the blink of an eye from Cold Llamas. But now it's these, like, these buff invades. I actually love seeing them get this aggressive, try to control the jungle a little bit more. It sets them up for potential team fights. Saraga, he's lurking in the jungle, and I love the presence between a Mercury and a Sobek. The amount of lockdown and CC there is usually enough to find a kill. But they're timid, and that's the thing that I think is a little confusing about Smileyface. I think they are still late game carries that they have on their side, but they hit pretty hard. I think just a little faster than what you see out of Cold Llamas. So I wouldn't mind seeing them, especially around this like level 12 mark, get a little more aggressive and force Cold Llamas to be a little uncomfortable going into the late game.
Especially Prime is going to the DOS start. That can be a little slower than some of the other starts we see, though obviously will pay some dividends for him later on in the build. So we'll certainly see what the strategy is for Smileyface to continue their aggression. The Fury is still up if they want to look for it, but we're only 9 minutes into this game. It is still relatively early for them. They can enjoy this lead they've got right now. I don't think they have to get active. Saraga considering a back, but he just finished Aaron Died and Ninja Tabe, so I don't know if he is looking to back right now. Yeah, he'll head over towards mid as expected, I think. And Streak up, living his best life over there in the long lane. Looks like he has been left alone now by Genetics as Calvin and Echrome continue to try and bully out his jungle. He's going to need some backup here. Going to be hard to defend all of this on his own.
I mean, this is just Freya gameplay, right? The fact that he gets his purple buff is maybe the biggest thing further.
I like the idea of that Fear No Evil. That did hit too. Saraga, though, ends up falling, fails to get the last bit of damage, but Genetics was way further forward, ends up falling to Silenced and the rest of Smileyface. So it's a 1-for-1 support for jungle. Certainly favors Cold Llamas, but there is the crush damage. Echrome gets the kill credit on the tail end, but that was all Silenced. 1-0-2 for the Scylla. Not a bad start to this game.
Finch, there's one consistent thing in Smite that I experience, and it is always my fault, and it is that I always underestimate how much damage Crush does, just in general, whether I'm laning against a Scylla, whether there's a Scylla on the other team, or when we're watching Smite, it always changes things. And Calvin, I don't think anybody needs to specify it, but you can't be dying to those things, and everybody knows you can't be dying to Gold Furies right now. But I guess overall, go into the Gold Fury as opposed to, to Smileyface, or I guess to Cold Llamas here, sorry, is maybe a little bit better for them, especially after they are able to get some pretty solid kills to start off that engagement.
I mean, it's not the biggest deal in the world. It's certainly avoidable, though. I don't know. If I'm being honest there with you. It didn't have to happen, certainly, but Smileyface still in a great spot. That much has not changed. Still ahead here at this point in the game, still controlling the neutral objectives there, Gore, and certainly still posing a lot of problems for Cold Llamas. And this Scylla, in particular, is going to be a really difficult one for them to answer. I mean, who really can stand up to all that damage from them if they end up getting isolated? Really nobody, so they got to find some kind of way to get her out of these fights.
That's going to be the difficulty, right? Especially right now, Cold Llamas, I think they actually have a pretty good defensive team. I mean, Geb is one of the best saviors overall, but it doesn't seem to be lining up for him. I think that case was more Genetics aggression than it was anything else. I mean, you called it out in the middle of the fight, but he was on Smileyface's side of the Fury when everybody else was at their red buff. Like, he was completely away from the team. And 9 times out of 10 as a Geb, you're not doing anything on your own that's going to make that fight worthwhile. So I'm a little curious as to what got him so aggressive. Maybe he thought there'd be more follow-up from the team. Streak Up now, though, has that Ring of Hecate, so maybe they're going to get a little more aggressive for Cold Llamas over here, make Echrome uncomfortable. But I think once it comes down to, especially late game, Silenced, is able to run away. Saraga, we saw last game, able to run away. E-Chrome, not as safe as others. The roll doesn't get you incredibly far, and your ult can only take you out of the game or out of the battle for a little bit, and not enough to save your life. Not quite as safe as here's Geb Shield, also a Matarasu peel, also Fails can ult to peel for you. Also Freya has her ult and all the safety things we've listed a couple times this game. It feels like Cold Llamas, at least at this point, should start getting into the territory where they don't necessarily worry too much about Smileyface getting aggressive.
Well, someone's got to come help Streak up. I mean, the man's level 10. Genetics again in a bad spot. Cataclysm comes out, but the special delivery catches him out. And here's the thing. I mean, I know Genetics gets caught there, but that time he died earlier, I mean, they've got a lot of displacement between the charge prey, between the special delivery. Perhaps he was end up caught in the CC chain, but either way, I think this duo lane has really hurt Cold Llamas this game. They have had no pressure on the left side, and Fails has not shown up over there to establish any pressure, so they're just both way behind as Mogao gets his ultimate forced out. Fails and Maniac want this kill.
I'm actually surprised to see the lack of pressure from Mogao there. It feels like, at least normally, you could have gotten to the tower line. Maybe the knockup's a little too slow. He's focused more on getting out than doing Cthulhu things, which either way ends up in a loss of his life. I don't think there's many ways to walk away from that not dead, but we saw that happen to Maniac last game, and it kind of didn't mean anything when it came to team fights. I just don't know that you have the same prowess and luck as Mogao does, or as Maniac had, because Mogao's going to be going up against Fails, Streak Up, Prime, maybe none that are direct counters to Cthulhu, but again, a lot of damage there to either burn through him like Prime has, or to just kill him outright, which I think is what Streak Up's going to bring to the game. So Thorn's going to be very important for him, as well as just peel from the rest of the team.
I like the juke there from Maniac, but Saraga had some backup, silence to make sure that there is no way that he escapes, and Saraga ends up as the beneficiary on the backside of that. So that's pretty important. Maniac was way out ahead of Llamoga, really the only place where Smileyface were behind in their direct matchup. So pretty good they're able to get that kill on Llama and start slowing her down some, because that's looking like probably the best plan for Cold Llamas to sort of force their way back in. I mean, the middle of the map, the mid lane and the jungle are close to their direct matchups, but the Soul lane was the only place where they had an outright lead.
Yeah, nothing, I think, now going to be coming up incredibly in their favor. I mean, you still have a small lead for Maniac, but with everybody else playing catch-up or much further ahead, I should say, on Smileyface, it's going to be, again, just interesting as they transition into it. I mean, we're 15 minutes in. This is typically where you start seeing fights break out, and even now, they're still just locking down Genetics, which is, it's a great kill, but I don't know that it means much. I mean, a level 10 Geb is really, you're just taking him off the board for 20 seconds than anything else.
Maniac tries to get aggressive over the wall, goes silenced, making good use of that Sentinel and able to escape. E-Chrome wants the kill here, goes up into the ult, but Streak Up has one of his own, but even when he lands, there is trouble on the way. Llamoga there too, but Streak Up able to narrowly make it out of there. You got to keep backing up though, bud. Calvin with the blink. I like the good use of the Aegis that lets him immune the damage coming out from the Sickening Strike and the Tail Whip. So Streak Up lives. That's the problem with Freya. Even when you've got her dead to rights, the Valkyrie's discretion, the relics, they allow her to make it out of it.
I love the dead to rights means nothing for her. She'll just ignore you and walk out alive anyway. And now you're actually in a bad position. You committed so much to getting Freya. Maniac looking to try and fight you. Genetics is over here, but he doesn't have his ult. Feels like the counter-engage potential for Cold Llamas, in theory, was there, but execution-wise, they just couldn't find those moments. I think that's going to be deadly in team fights. When Maniac has his ult, Genetics has his ult, and Fails is in the engagement, then you're looking at beads being burned incredibly fast for Smileyface, all of them getting locked down. They don't have a Geb shield, so getting out of a Fear No Evil or something like that is not going to be easy to do. Now they're starting up a Fury.
Primal Fury goes to Cold Llamas. Llamoga, though, wants to try and keep up the aggression of the backside. Charge Prey lands onto Genetics, but as you've mentioned, I don't know how much it hurts Cold Llamas anymore to continually lose Genetics at this point of so little value that I don't even know that this affects them all that much. So they are going to lose him, but they get the Fury in response that should cut into that lead at least a little bit, keep it right around that 3,000 mark and not too far out of control, but still, with how far ahead E-Chrome is over Streak Up, things are still looking pretty scary right now for Cold Llamas.
Yeah, I think I keep trying to level it out for Cold Llamas, but now I'm looking at it numbers-wise. I mean, 4,000 gold down, maybe going to equalize a little bit more after they get that Pyromancer, so a little under 4,000, 3,700 instead in favor of Smileyface. But that lead for Echrome, it seems small, but Rom is doing so much in these fights lately.
Evil used onto Echrome. He responds by going up to the sky, but Silence has already fallen. But Zerga gets to the back and blows up Streak Up. Finally, the Mercury giving us that value that we have been asking for. On the retreat at this point, though, is Calvin. It has been a 1-for-1 so far. It looks like Cold Llamas are the team that's not afraid to let this fight keep going. They've only got Pretty Prime and Maniac here, though, so they don't want to get too involved, and they head back to their own corner.
Well, Freya, like I like to highlight, I think this is applicable to Hunters as well. Falling behind 4 levels now is massive. 2 levels we see her fight back from, even 3 levels we've seen her fight back from. But there is still something to be said that itemization is kind of all she cares about. Again, it's the attack speed that makes her so deadly late game more than anything else, I think, in items that she is going to buy. Power is always nice. Obviously, her scaling works well with that. That's just how it works late game. But being able to find yourself 2-3 autos in the span that you're like in a break that you would have had earlier on in the game will make a difference for Streak Up. Even if he's 3 levels behind Echrome, still going to be able to hit incredibly hard. But it's coming at a cost early on, and right now it's that even though you've got all of these tools available to you to stay alive, they can just dive you if they're Smileyface. I mean, Saraga has 4 levels or 3 levels on you as well, so he's just going to go back, crit you twice, and you're gone. Even though that's going to be the same, I think, late game, it's just amazing how fast you can disappear, much like it's amazing how fast Echrome can disappear, because I didn't even get to stop in time to say it.
You know, that's twice in a row now that Fails has tried to pressure Echrome out of the fights. I like that. He's recognized that Echrome is a big part of the problem. But I do wonder if this could have come earlier during the laning phase so that Streak Up wasn't so far behind. But I mean, either way, though, this is certainly the right thing from Fails, and that's excellent that he's been able to get him now once out of the fight in middle lane where he got those beads initially, I believe, and now here, the second go-around, where he's actually able to complete the kill. That should buy Cold Llamas a significant amount of time, really, where Streak Up is able to do some farming, where Echrome can't match it, and it just bring them a little bit closer towards that even.
It is that aggression, though. As you'd said, kind of missing, I think, from Fails early on. Normally, at least in my mind, I think level 5, Fear No Evil online, let's get aggressive, let's get in there, let's at least force some beads, but we didn't get to see much of that, and honestly, I think it's just because what Fails is playing around, he doesn't necessarily have the best teammate follow-up, and that's nothing against Cold Llamas, it's just Merlin at level 5 isn't going to be doing a whole lot for you. Same thing for Streak Up. Ganks early on, even though I think they would have been nice, and honestly, he probably could have done it on his own, maybe just didn't have the follow-up that they wanted. Whereas nowadays, you hit 1 Fear No Evil, and that's just a silver plate for Streak Up to choose a target. I mean, if you hit 3 people, just find someone and tear them down. And as such, those kills, again, not a lot in their favor, but Cold Llamas only half down, 4 kills away from matching what Smileyface have. That gold lead's still 3,000, Finch, and after last game, this is about the moment we saw it disappear. It was like a team fight around 22 minutes. So you still have to be worried. I mean, 1 tear down a lane, especially mid, where both towers are still technically up there, would absolutely equalize everything. And I'm looking at the map backwards. For some Cold Llamas, you get all those tier 1s. I mean, there's 6 towers up. There's so much gold on the map for you.
There is still ways for them to cut this lead back. Genetics getting aggressive. Uses the Cataclysm onto Echrome and the knockup. Now will use the rollout in order to escape. Really did not get much out of Echrome or Calvin in response there for that aggression, so that is just the ultimate down for Genetics. But with this Fury coming back up in the next 7 seconds, I wonder if that might embolden Smileyface a bit. They don't have to worry about Cataclysm now.
I mean, they've been more than fine going in on Genetics when the ult was available. And if you get rid of that Geb early on, kind of like getting rid of a Kepri early on, you get rid of the safety that Cold Llamas have. But Maniac's rotating into the fight, and honestly, I think Dazzling Offensive could make or break a team fight.
Charge Prey, though, pulls Maniac to the back, but he's so tanky. Great Geb Shield, but a two-man Sonic Boom, but not necessarily onto the priority targets. And now the members who are low are actually silenced. He's in trouble, so is Calvin, and Streak Up starting to come online in the late game. Valkyrie's discretion lets him close the gap. The Banish lands as well, and that should be it for Echrome. Great peel, though, coming out from Mogao. That actually takes care of Streak Up and keeps Echrome alive, but fails, able to take care of Zeragizak on the backside. Echrome gets the kill into Genetics, as well as Mogao has saved this fight from falling into the pits of despair for Smileyface. Still 3 for 3 on both sides.
That, it's weird to say this. Not really, though. Cthulhu diff, right? Like, you lose that fight if you're playing literally any other solo laner. I don't think they can pull back that from the depths of the loss that it was for Smileyface. And then Mogao's just like, but we don't do that here. We don't lose. Like, that's... Guys, come on. We don't do that if I'm Cthulhu. And immediately it's just like, cool, I'm going to ult, I'm going to knock people up, specifically on the Streak Up. That amount of peel, whether or not you get that kill, got Echrome out alive, which was a huge win, at least in my book. Then being able to turn it into 3 kills on your side as well, making it go even. Cold Llamas couldn't do anything with the ground they had afterward. I mean, the Fury, Oni Fury, still available for either squad to run up. No Pyromancers taken. Fire Giant still available. That felt like that same turning point fight that we had in Game 1, but Cold Llamas just couldn't do it.
But I think we are now starting to see that this draft for Cold Llamas is kind of getting there, aren't they? Streak Up's damage was there for them in that last fight. They were able to get, you know, a nice ultimate coming out from the Unbotch there as well. I think they have the tools at this point to be able to hold on, and really, they're only going to start catching up more, at least in terms of the experience. I mean, the solo, jungle, and mid are even. The supports are pretty close too. It's just a matter of Streak Up starting to catch up those last couple of levels. He's got the Telekines, Demonic Grip, and Hekate all there, so he's certainly swinging at this point, especially if we see something like a Typhon's Fang come out in a little bit later here for Streak Up, maybe even a Hastened Ring. He still has some power spike items left to get.
And it's always weird to say it this way, but the good thing about level 20 on the other team is that they can't get any further ahead at that point, at least in terms of levels. So you will catch up for experience and where it matters, although that might not be enough for Mogao.
Mogao goes up into the ultimate right away. Fear No Evil coming out as well, but that does not lock down Saraga, who I think they knew did not have the beads. He would have certainly died there if that had connected. I like the idea from Fails, but just a little bit better with Saraga being able to get out of there. So starting up the Fury now is Smileyface, where they're in the lead still. About 3,000 gold, 4 kills out in front, but Echrome can't stick it with this many members of Cold Llamas watching.
Trying to figure out who's happier right now. The Cthulhu ult being down, I think, makes it easier, especially when Genetic finds a 2-man Cataclysm.
Not a bad setup at all. Genetics getting that fight going for him, and Prime providing the damage, able to find 2 quick picks. That's Echrome and Saraga. Perhaps the 2 biggest problems removed, but I think Scylla would like to object to that. Not bad from them in terms of the damage in response off of the setup that came there from Calvin, but now getting aggressive as Fails. He knows a lot of the abilities are down for Silenced, but not able to quite close that distance, close that gap. That means Cold Llamas have to slow it down for now, but there's the Charge Prey. They're going to pull one more member back in. The Root keeps them locked down, but it was Maniac they pulled. He lives through all of it, and Cold Llamas still have all their members alive.
I mean, all of that shield there on Calvin, keeping him alive. Now, actually still under threat. Fails isn't done. Once the Fear No Evil, they're trying to kill Mogao.
Not the easiest thing in the whole world to burst down. Without a traditional hunter, it's not the easiest thing in the world to burst down these towers either. And now Cold Llamas have bit off a bit more than they can chew. They have to back up as Mogao uses the ultimate, but as long as Cold Llamas don't lose anything here, I think they're still happy with this. They just got Mogao's ultimate out basically to defend a tier 1 tower. I mean, they're not upset about that at all.
No, and honestly, I think they're maybe even happier about it because they can start getting aggressive again. You back, spend whatever gold you have, but also heal back up if you're Cold Llamas. And then you're right back in the fight. Not only are you right back in the fight, but you know, much like that fight around the Fury, Mogao can't really do anything about it, at least not on his own, which is a huge win for you. Getting that Cthulhu ult every time, I think it's great to go in, force it, disengage, and then re-engage within 10, 20 seconds, whatever, to make sure that Mogao can't do anything when he doesn't have that available.
Pyromancer goes down as well. This has not been a bad start to this game here so far for Cold Llamas, all things considered. I mean, look how they brought back the gold lead, basically tied here at this point now, Gorma. As with the experience, we talked about how those level 20s eventually hit their cap. Well, that's happened now, and Streak Up is right there next to Echrome in terms of their relevance. The only difference is that that Streak Up has a Geb behind him to protect him and when things come to the worst. So things might now start to be favored Cold Llamas.
Genetics, even though it was, well, I mean, he's 0-5. It was a sloppy early game. 4 of those kills happened, I think, pre-15 minutes. It's just been fine. Again, after a while, he was worth nothing. Now he's able to go in and do exactly that with the Cataclysm.
Yeah, look at these ultimates between the Dazzling Offensive and the Cataclysm. It's too much control. Smileyface have to run for the hills already. Lamogao uses the ultimate to try and keep Cold Llamas at bay, but that might have opened up this Fire Giant to behold. If I'm Cold Llamas now, Smileyface are looking like way less of a threat than they were just a moment ago. We've got the Merlin, we've got the damage from this Freya, and Maniac can keep the squad zoned out. But Lamogao is on the way. Fire Giant's only at half. Cold Llamas, stop putting the DPS into it for now, but it is still leashed. It's still at half, so they have to make the decision if they want to stick on or not. They are going to stick it. The damage is enough. Cold Llamas get the FG. The Fear No Evil zones out Smileyface, and Echrome couldn't contest with the ultimate, but Sonic Boom has hit 2 people, Core.
That's exactly what I was worried about. There were 3 ultimates still available. I'm a monster looking to lock people down, and that's a lot of damage from the Scylla.
Echrome able to find one, but Fails gets the other. Lamogao answers back, but so does Fails. Look at the kill feed lighten up as Echrome gets the double. A 3 for 2. That is in favor of Smileyface, but Cold Llamas took down the Fire Giant, only still standing on Pretty Prime and Genetics. It felt like Gore, they were in such a confident position, but Smileyface were able to make the re-engage.
And at this point, just barely ahead in terms of kills, gold, everything. But it's still Smileyface's game right now. I feel like, specifically for Cold Llamas, they kind of used everything they had. I mean, you saw the Dazzling Offensive, you saw Streak Up go into his ult and Genetics, use that Cataclysm. All in the blink of an eye, just to zone out Smileyface. They didn't even get that many kills in that initial engagement when they used all their ults, but Silenced, Saraga, Echrome, all kept theirs. 2 of those, I would say, are phenomenal at Fire Giant steals, and even though the snipes didn't get to connect and I'm a Monster wasn't used in that way, I think what they did afterward is clean, because Pretty Prime and Genetics are left with Fire Giant. Genetics, you can argue, it's good to have that sustain for the next team fight, and for Pretty Prime, maybe something to help burn down through Mogao and potentially through Calvin, but not really the ones you need to burn down 5 towers that are still remaining on the side of Smileyface. So I don't think there's a lot of siege potential for Cold Llamas unless they just outright kill Smileyface, which has proven to be difficult, especially time and time again trying to lock down anybody. There's so much defense they have in terms of escape that Smileyface can just disengage and then come back in, maybe even more powerful.
Smileyface have a slight gold lead here at this point, but we're so late into the game. I mean, we're at 30 minutes, but it doesn't matter a whole lot. Primal Fury is the objective they're dancing around now. And remember, this is going to be big. If we're crossing that 30-minute threshold, then it'll be EFG we deal with the next time that it's up. And Primal Fury will make that a much more realistic goal for whichever team secures the objective. Relic's not available, though, for Streak Up or for Pretty Prime, so I don't know how comfortable Cold Llamas feel taking this fight.
It's a Primal Fury as well. It's one of those awkward ones where you don't want to overcommit, but you don't really want to give it up for nothing. You want to fight this if you're Cold Llamas, but I don't think it's the end-all be-all. You might be able to let it go, try to force a fight somewhere else, maybe around the Pyromancer in a few minutes when it respawns. Or maybe try to find pressure in mid, push down that tier 1, but they're going to go for the fight. They're looking for Mogao.
Yeah, but the damage from Silence was better. A great crush. Put Streak Up low. Echrome responds by going into his ultimate. Looks like they're just going to hard commit to the Primal Fury while the zone is on from Lamogao. That works. Smileyface are able to get the Primal Fury, and they should be able to retreat relatively cleanly. Even though Maniac is stepping further forward, he's basically alone at this point, so not bad work there from Smileyface at all. That Primal Fury was certainly worth it, and Maniac gets caught out. That was so much damage from Silence, even though it was Saraga that got the last shot.
I think Saraga able to find a lot, silenced a ton of damage, but I'm also looking at Echrome right now, who's been pulling back a lot of these fights. I think between the 3 of them, and you had kind of highlighted it earlier, being these 3 hyper carry-esque gods that are coming into this.
I think so.
Late game, I feel like if Cold Llamas, don't play perfectly, that's the avenue for the win. Smileyface have a lot of win conditions, and they all come down successfully, escaping things like fails.
That is a fatty Fear No Evil, though, forcing the Beads and the Aegis, it looks like, out from Echrome. And certainly they're both on cooldown at this point. Zeraga's going to start up the Pyromancer. The rollout the Genetics is on the way, but that objective belongs to Smileyface. And as you sort of were mentioning, Smileyface now, with all three of these picks, and that's not even counting Lamogao and his carry potential, right, when he transforms in that Cthulhu. The problem now for Cold Llamas is that Smileyface have so many late-game threats, plus they controlled the early game, that now that Cold Llamas are in the late game where they're at their strongest form, and that is the truth for their draft, that I don't know if it matches what Smileyface have.
It's going to be difficult, because Cold Llamas, again, just good teamfight ultimates, but if you don't line them up in the right way, Fails goes in, gets, like you said, a fat Fear No Evil, is able to force Echrome's relics, but there's no follow-up for it. I mean, nothing Genetics can do can really lock him down. Maniac doesn't have his ult. I think he wasn't even in the fight there because he had just died prior. So it's all about going in the right order and also not giving up your life. I think that's the other, it's much easier said than done, but if Maniac goes in and it's just slightly ahead of the rest of his team, he's going to die before anybody can catch up to him and make that dazzling offensive worthwhile.
Well, what if he gets plugged in? It's a lot of the same results. Maniac has to use the Dazzling Offensive just to retreat at this point. He was under so much pressure, but there's the response. The knockup should guarantee the shot from Echrome, and that's exactly how it works. Now, Fails is in some trouble on the right-hand side as well. He's locked in between Calvin and Lamogao. This is what I meant. They didn't even need the help from Surga or Silence. This was all done by Mogao and Calvin. They get the double on the right-hand side, but to back up for Echrome. And now Serika's going in. Sonic Boom, a bit ambitious in that spot, but it does get the beads out from Streak Up and the ultimate, so that's about as much value as Smileyface can hope to get realistically out of a fight at this point.
So, like you said, Calvin coming in, a lot better setup than we got to see on the Hercules, much more potential. I'm going to go ahead and say it. Saraga is having a night and day different game. I mean, he had barely 6,000 damage going out of last game, and now he is one of the essentials in the middle of all of this. Again, maybe not at the very top. He's doubled what he did before, though, 12,000 as he comes through. A lot of that's crits, and honestly, that 12,000 is all effective damage. I think every single one of them is converted to a kill somehow because he's 4, 3, and 8. Whether he's the one sealing the deal or somebody else on his team is, it's just very potent for him. And I think that's making a huge difference for him. A jungler that kind of exists this game.
It's definitely helping, but they've already lost Echrome and Calvin. What went so wrong on this right side Phoenix Siege here for Smileyface? They were in a great spot. They were coming in with what looked like the 5v3, at the very least the 5v4 advantage, but it just gets stuffed by Cold Llamas at that right side Phoenix. It's an excellent defense from them, and now wisely not overcommitting it to the damage from Silence, but they do still want to get aggressive, recognizing that there's some weakness here for Smileyface with Echrome down, but a little bit easier said than done for them to find the punch.
I love that Cold Llamas are still fighting this because, honestly, it almost feels like you're fighting against the inevitable. But they do have a really good Phoenix defense, not just proven by what we have seen, but also just in theory. I mean, you're trying to jump into a Merlin, which is never a good idea. You're trying to fight into a Freya, is never a good idea. And Geb, honestly, I think he makes better when he's playing more relaxed and more as a savior than as the initiator. Even though a Blink Cataclysm can start a fight off great, then it makes the shielding portion, your knock-up, everything else that you have in your kit feels a little more awkward if you're right there in the middle of the fight because you're not quite sure where everybody else on your team is going to be. And so I think fighting into Cold Llamas around their Phoenix, you're going to need a pick or two prior, or just a lot of pressure to make sure that you can seal the deal as easily as you want, because those Phoenixes otherwise aren't going anywhere.
And I don't know if we've quite given Prime his due at this point, but nearly 25,000 player damage, leading all players in the map. A 2-0-5 scoreline as well, the only person who's been undying. He has not only positioned perfectly in terms of remaining safe, but he's gotten all his damage off as well, it would seem. This Book of Thoth, slower build into the Soul Reaver, Soul Gem, Ethereal Staff seems to have really worked out for him. He's in a pretty tough spot, and I think that's part of what's going to make these sieges difficult. Merlin feels great on base defense. He's got decent clear and great damage potential.
And honestly, with his build, he's just a little more difficult, I think, to lock down in the backline, because specifically that Ethereal Staff has a little bit of extra health that's going to make him take another 1 to 2 hits overall. but a lot of return damage that he's just going to be able to hit before you get there. That range that he brings is massive, and as long as he has his stance switch up, then he's going to be able to hit you with 4 abilities before you can get back there to him.
Mogao is up in the ultimate. Sonic Boom lands onto 2, and they've already been able to use the pluck to bring one back, but Silence falls in the response. Streak Up and Fails have found ways to get kills, and look at how Cold Llamas are playing. They're not going to overcommit. They know what they got. They know that they're in a great spot. They back up into the Phoenix, regroup, and now they can siege with Mogao's ultimate all the way off cooldown. Very well played defense there from Cold Llamas.
And you're, again, going into these huge teamfight ultimates if you're Smileyface. I mean,
yeah.
The way the Phoenixes are shaped, it's almost inviting you to step forward into a Fear No Evil or a Dazzling Offensive or a Cataclysm, what have you, because you take one misstep as just a front line, like Calvin, I'm going to go in for a pluck. It doesn't matter if you connect or not, even if they can get a kill on the end of it, you are now out of position, your team's going to, or the Cold Llamas specifically, are going to just tear through you, and your team's going to have to watch as you get melted down. I think Smileyface did a great job being able to pressure out the right-hand side, take the Fire Giant prior to all of that. But as of right now, very similar to what we saw with Cold Llamas when they got the Fire Giant, it's not really amounting to a lot. You're losing the fights that maybe matter the most while you have the buff, and so it's not really getting you anything. I mean, you cleared out all the towers, so that is a big just net benefit for Smileyface. And that gold, specifically the 11,000 they have, is still in play. They're finishing off the 6th item, selling off their boots now so to make sure they have that true 6th item. But I think the fact that Cold Llamas are holding them off right now around this base, it's given me a lot of pressure for Smileyface to figure out how to get in here. You have to bait someone on Cold Llamas out of position.
Not going to be the easiest thing in the world, I don't think, for Smileyface to break into this base. The Nemean picked up for Prime as his 6th slotted item. That's going to add those block stacks to make it even harder for Sarah to be the one that takes him down, potentially. You're right to note that some big power spikes are on their way for Cold Llamas, but the same for Smileyface. I mean, fully 6 slotted now is Sarah as well. Maybe I think hi-rez is what he picked up as that 6th slot item. Didn't quite see, but he's all the way there. Same for E-Chrome as well. No longer has the boots there, so we're getting into the true late game here at this point, Lauren. Yet still further power spikes to be found, as Silence doesn't do that much damage here to these frontline members, but they do have one member out of position. Lamogao goes up to the ultimate. Genetics is the one that is too far forward, but there's the dash pass from Maniac to keep Silence and E-Chrome at bay. Lamogao gets Genetics up to the sky, has gone E-Chrome with the snipes, but he comes back down. Now with the 5-4 advantage, perhaps Smileyface can make something happen after all.
All right, so Finch, over 20 minutes ago, I was saying that it didn't matter that they kept killing off Genetics because it meant nothing. And honestly, at that point in the game, I still agree with that. But right now, Genetics is level 19 in a 40-minute game. It's not having the impact that you want, and when you get this kill, it's a permanent 4v5. You get rid of one of the best initiators for Cold Llamas. It's just such a difference maker that, you know, the first 20 minutes wasn't a huge deal. Now, if Genetics loses his life, it loses them a fight and the fighting potential for Cold Llamas without putting so much risk onto Fails and Maniac to go in.
Summon Death is a lot, and as you're kind of alluding to, not even, you know, the full 6 slotted yet. Now, I'm not even talking about boots being sold off. He just has not even finished that final item at this point. So, I mean, certainly tanky. It's just a matter of when you get plucked out of position against this draft from Smileyface, it kind of doesn't matter what you have built up until then. You are in so much trouble as Silence, Sarraga, and E-Chrome all get to start trying to put damage into you all at once with no risk because you're out of position due to being hit by the charged prey. So Smileyface showing that they certainly still have that pick potential in the jungle. It's just a question of if they can get that same type of thing to happen when they're on the siege. Maybe this Magai's Cloak for Silence will be able to help with that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm hoping to see through all of this. I think Magi's Cloak is probably the best thing for both sides overall. There's so much CC on the table, I wouldn't mind seeing Genetics go for it, considering the plucks have been very devastating to him. But it is the safety right now, and Silence picked up that Rod at Tahuti, has a Magi's, the Doom Orb. Like the amount of damage Silence should be doing, it almost makes me sick. Like it is ridiculous how much that Ascilla can hit at this level of game, to the point where Streak Up, Fails, Prime. If you get aggressive without a tank near you, Silence is going to eat you alive. And that, honestly, based on the lore, that makes sense for Scylla and what we have seen for her. You have to go through Scylla and Charybdis, and she will literally eat you alive in a lot of those moments. But it is that setup. I mean, you know, burning through Maniac and Genetics won't be the easiest thing anymore. We got to see that in the last engagement, so maybe not the end-all be-all for the team, but that's where Saraga and Echrome pick up the slack because they're just going to melt these tanks.
Calvin using the charge Prey to reposition back with the squad. Looks like it was a 4-1 split, but now they're bringing Fails back towards the rest of the group. At least at this point, action already kicking off near the Phoenix as they're looking for the fight. Lamogau's up into the ultimate underneath the left side. Phoenix is where they're trying to go, but they've slowed back down. Lamogau, though, wants to head back in. At least it looks that way, but not going to be a full heavy commit from Smileyface. Echrome, though, went to the ultimate. I don't know who he was looking for there. Good Geb shield from Genetics denies it, though, as there's the Blink Cataclysm from the Geb to get the relics out from the back line of Smileyface. And this left side Phoenix is still standing tall.
I mean, there's not much they can do to break it down unless you can get Echrome into a good position. Or Saraga can find something. I mean, still has that Sonic Boom, could still set up a huge ult. But it's just all dependent on, well, their aggression, how much they want this Phoenix, and how willing they are to go deep.
Calvin looks for the charge Prey, but he gets locked down. Streak Up gets the kill credit there. The Banish does not quite land onto Silence, which would have certainly guaranteed a double for him as Maniac and the boys continue to press forward, and they are not allowing Smileyface anywhere near their base at this point, man. They are defending these Phoenixes very, very well, and I don't know what Smileyface have to do differently. Maybe a bit more of a hard commit to the 4-1 split here, Gore, because, I mean, the all barrel it down left has not worked.
And right now, Cold Llamas are the immovable object, right? You got rid of all their towers. They can't defend them. When it comes down to team fights outside of the base, it doesn't seem like they've got everything on lock. But if you take a single step into that Phoenix, you're dead. It just, nothing seems to be working for them. And it's just how good their composition is. Again, the shape of the base works so well with these team fight ultimates that Cold Llamas have, that I could see them defending it literally all day. I think Smileyface could do everything in their power to just keep ahead of Cold Llamas, and it just won't matter unless they can get a good pick early on. Both times they've gone in, Calvin maybe getting locked down out of position, Echrome using his ult too early. Now we'll have to see how they can handle this.
Yeah, two-man Banish. That's a pretty good way to start the fight. Streak Up takes care of Silenced, and this is the first time we see Cold Llamas look this good in a fight outside of their base, at least once we've gotten into this hyper-late game. Fire Giant's not available for them, though, so what do they even do with their small number advantage? The Fury is even further away in a minute 50, a little bit less than that now. They're going to have to settle for the Pyromancer and maybe try and push out some of these minion waves to eat up the rest of Smileyface's time, which they do start going to work, but I don't know if we're going to see Cold Llamas get onto the offense here anytime soon. They're going to need probably a bigger defense before they can really start to look for a push of their own.
Well, big things are happening for him. Well, Staff of Mirrodin maybe coming up is going to be important for Pretty Prime. Even more damage. Whether it's on offense or defense, either way, more damage for Pretty Prime is devastating. 34K already done. That's just going to approach, I think, pretty easily hitting that 40,000 mark. But I'm also looking at the fact that, you know, Genetics finally finishing that last item does get that Magi's Cloak, which is going to help him stay, you know, sustained. Specifically, Silence actually just sold his Magi's Cloak for an Obsidian Shard because of how little damage he was doing to those tanks. It's these, like, late-game changes. You don't get to see these often. You know, it's 120,000 gold here for Smileyface. They have a lot to work with for itemization. And I think Silence is looking at Genetics and he's looking at Maniac. They're the problems right now, so he wants to burn them down with his team.
He's right. I mean, how many times have we seen a Crush this late in the game hit Maniac and it do maybe like 10% of its health bar, somewhere around there? I mean, Maniac does not seem too disturbed by these regular abilities coming out from Silence. Genetics has the Magi's Cloak stripped away from him. Maniac is starting to get a bit aggressive as well, but rejoining his team way over to the left is Saraga, making good use of that lifesteal from the Bloodforge to regain his health back by taking those mid-harpies. And still, looks like Cold Llamas are done defending at their base. They're out full-on contesting the Fire Giant.
You know, Finch, I can't help but think way back to one of the first Fury fights we got to see Cold Llamas and one of their first engagements where they find 3 kills, but because of Mogao and who Mogao is, they find 3 kills in return. That if you change your picks and bans, or maybe there's a different target priority overall, Cold Llamas would have won this game by now. And I think so far, what we're seeing is just resilience from Smileyface, but that fight specifically rings true to me as one of those moments where it showcased no matter how well Cold Llamas play their engagement and play this composition, Smileyface are still going to have just a small leg up on them because I think just the damage numbers they're going to output as well as Cthulhu and his potential in-game. Now it's converting that, trying to figure it out. 46 minutes in, 47 minutes in, things change so dramatically at this point in the game. You've got high damage potential. Every little step you take is going to make that big difference in whether or not you are dead or if you're going to be in the right position to find your kill. Because much like Pretty Prime gets showcased right there, Echrome shoots through walls. You take one step too far forward, you're dead. Maniac showcases that even better.
So long, Maniac, so long, Amaterasu. Smileyface are able to find the pick, and now they've got this Fire Giant burning quickly. It's theirs. And again, we get to see them try and make a siege happen, but if they're quick, I mean, they've got a minute to work with, plus they've got those Oni minions coming through, and soon they're going to be able to start pushing with that Fire Giant buff as well. I mean, this might be the siege that Smileyface needed.
I'm just, there's still 45 seconds without this Amaterasu. She's been gone for so long already, half a minute, and she's still just going to be waiting. That's the best time to go in. A good blink from Genetics, doesn't find anything, but at least gets him out of dodge. But Mogao, the rest of Smileyface, they want to fight, but that's good on Fails.
Fails recognizing that Prime just chunked the backline, man. So he gets in there and cleans it up, jumps over the roof.
Good
Silence is not able to clean up the kill, though. If Fails gets both of them, he's done way more work than you can ask of him. There's the pluck, but it's too late. Ima Monster's already down, has the lead in order to disengage, and Cold Llamas yet again defend. But look at the left Phoenix. That has been burned down, and now the base of Cold Llamas has finally been cracked open mid as well.
I will say, that had to be some of the best Hunbat's mechanics, like just as a showcase of what he can do in a short period of time, especially in a 1v2, which then turned into a 1v3. But all of that, and it doesn't really mean much. In fact, if anything, I think it comes out worse here for Cold Llamas. They lose both of those Phoenixes, as you had highlighted. And yeah, they've got a great defensive team, but if you can't win a fight outside of your Phoenix, you're not going to win the game overall. You have to find something a little bit more aggressive. You have to find a way to still burn down 3 towers 50 minutes into this game. And it seems like they're grouping up for one. Maybe they're going to try to find someone out of sorts on Smileyface, but I think this benefits Smileyface.
Silence being used. The Banisher there too to get the beads, and they do indeed get the pick. That is why they were all grouped up, was to find someone on their own in the jungle, and they need to delay this push. Because with 2 Phoenixes down, it would not be all that hard for Smileyface to just rush in and into this. So a long time dead for Silence. I think it was 71 seconds that he was having to take a seat. That should give some time for Cold Llamas to try and push these minion waves out and buy some time to maybe be able to find another defense.
Unfortunately for him, on Cold Llamas, again, you know, it's a good kill. I don't know that it means much. Like you said, I think it just delays the game, and honestly, that's what you need when you're Phoenix defending when they're already down. You're just burning down Fire Minion waves. You don't want Scylla there to push them up any easier. You don't want to have to worry about a 5-on-5 fight. So you still have, at this point, 30 seconds where you don't have to worry about Smileyface getting aggressive. Unfortunately, you can't get aggressive onto anything. Pyromancer goes in favor of Smileyface. Again, gold at this point, experience at this point, you know, it's not as worth talking about, but it does translate into things. You get power potions. Your relics at this point should all be leveled up, but it's really what Smileyface have in their inventory right now. All of these wards, all of this vision and counter vision that they have to be able to take on Cold Llamas is going to devastate this team. And it's 20,000 gold difference right now, Finch. You expect this to make a huge difference for them. But one wrong fight for Smileyface ends the game in favor of Cold Llamas. One wrong fight for Cold Llamas puts us to game 3. So it is a lot of pressure. I'm still watching Echrome because he's been the one that I think has been performing consistently the best. Saraga has had some great moments, but it hasn't always gone his way. Same thing for Silence. Echrome has been very, very consistent in where his positioning is and what his damage is going to be. So I think he's a big portion of the win factor for Smileyface.
They don't have a whole lot of time left on this enhanced Fire Giant, but they are grouping up on the right side. They want to keep the pressure up when these Phoenixes are close to respawning, if possible, then the minions can get in there and take care of it. But maybe we're seeing them start to back off. I mean, they're running out of time on the Fire Giant. They might not like their fight on it without it on this Phoenix, especially with all 5 members of Cold Llamas up for the defense. They all have their relics too. No real substantial advantages except the fact that Cold Llamas have to rotate over and defend these waves. That's why Smileyface are here. It's Calvin and Lamogao that move in first. Can't get a whole lot there, though, so they have to back up. Left side Phoenix will be up soon. Mid will be up right after that as Lamogao goes to the ultimate. Maniac tries to get to the back line, but does take decent damage from that crush. Not bad from Science's backline, but Calvin is getting melted into the Valkyrie's discretion. Goes up, does streak up there to defend the mid. Phoenix fails, not there as part of the fight. That was why Smileyface thought they had the advantage, but Cold Llamas defend the right Phoenix, really probably win the fight, and keep both of their Phoenixes up. That's very impressive.
That. I don't think a lot of teams are able to pull something off like that. I mean, you deter a push of a team. Admittedly, they had just lost their Fire Giant, so it's not going to be the exact same as it was before. But you stop them from sieging in right. At the same time, you manage to clear out what I think counted as 2 to 3 waves, both in left and in mid, throughout all of that, with both players who were clearing the waves still having an impact in the fight on right. That was just good rotations and a good dance from Cold Llamas to keep their base alive and everything going for them. The Fire Giant, I mean, at this point, it's almost forfeit for them. That Primal Fury pretty much meaningless, I would say, at 50 minutes in. It might be able to salvage something, give you a little advantage, but realistically, you're still focused on base defense right now if you're Gold Llamas.
And Smileyface have really been struggling now. They've hit this brick wall in terms of how to siege this base of Cold Llamas. The good news is, though, for Cold Llamas, that with those Phoenixes having gone down, they will be forever easier for them to go back and grab later. In fact, right now, they're even just trying to heal back up. So I think that's why they're trying to re-siege here right away. They've got the EFG. Yes. They know that it won't be too hard for them to go get those other Phoenixes, and they want to keep Cold Llamas on the back foot.
This is the most important Phoenix to get, and I like the way they're prioritizing this. Left lane's pushed up. I actually don't know if I like Saraga going all the way over here, because for the most part, you're not going to find a lot of progress. The minions are meeting at your tier 1 tower if you're Smileyface. I want him in the fight, and I feel a little awkward seeing that Mercury so far away because of his hyper carry potential. It feels like missing this god isn't great.
I wonder,
but he actually might just be waiting for a gank because he let the minions pass.
Yeah, he might even be looking for a back door potentially on that Phoenix as well. I mean, he does a lot of damage to it at this point. And I think that's the call. He is shredding it while they start the fight on the right-hand side. So that ended up working out. And he might even be able to come over and grab the mid Phoenix as well. Someone has to get over there and deal with him. The ping's starting to come out. They know he's over there. So Saraga does the job, gets the left side Phoenix while they engage in right. And now is drawing Fails' attention over towards mid.
Walked across a ward so they know where he is. They've got vision on this Mercury now. But that's a huge win for him in left, just getting that. And already mid lane was pushed up, so I love the way they played that. Waiting for it instead, and still being able to bounce the fight off. I think Smileyface recognized they're not going to win a defensive fight against Cold Llama's draft, but they can definitely keep them preoccupied, locked away over here. 55 minutes into the game and find these objectives they've already taken elsewhere, and again just push the advantages they already have. That's going to give them that pressure back, and that's going to keep Cold Llamas so preoccupied that even if it takes them another 10-15 minutes, they're going to be able to grind their way to a victory whether you want them to or not.
Well, one of the few advantages of these 55-minute games that we do get to see some interesting different types of Phoenix Siege. Smileyface is showing us some of their ability to really stretch the map with this Mercury pick, so not bad from them. Now they have Saraga over in mid, trying to get the 4-1 split while the rest of the squad threatens in right. I have to imagine they're waiting to hard commit until Lamogao's ultimate comes back up. It's such a crucial tool for them. Once he has it, I wouldn't be surprised if then they go all in.
That jump, that patience, it's going to matter. There's 30 seconds to wait. I feel like that's so long to keep someone preoccupied, especially because right now you still have Saraga trying to push down that middle Phoenix, but this might be the pluck to change the game.
Maybe, but they really don't get much value out of that one. I like the idea there from Calvin, but Maniac uses the Dazzling Offensive in response, so at least they get that ultimate on cooldown. That's a tough one to have to deal with. Meanwhile, as long as Saraga keeps this pressure in mid, no one can deal with the Fire Minions that are slowly pushing up in left. Before too long, they'll be all the way threatening the Titan.
And that last defense we saw where Cold Llamas were able to juggle everything so efficiently, that doesn't happen often, especially with Mogao ulting in your backline. They want this win, and they want it now.
Sarah has come over to the right side, already used the Sonic Boom at this point, but Llamocow starting to get chipped down. So is Calvin. The right side, Phoenix is so low, but they can't commit for it any further. How is Calvin still standing? He regroups back with the squad. The Fire Minions are now into the actual Titan room, and Sarah is still positioned like he wants to threaten this middle Phoenix. I don't think Smileyface want a full-on retreat at all. They've brought a couple members back, like E-Chrome as well as Silence, are going to step forward and force the right side Phoenix down. The Crush is there to keep Maniac at bay as well. He takes a ton of damage, and now both the side lane Phoenixes are down. It's just the mid Phoenix standing for Cold Llamas.
Yeah, it feels like pretty much everybody on Smileyface didn't get the memo that Calvin was supposed to die and Mogao was supposed to be too low to go back into combat, because they just turned around. They saw that Cold Llamas couldn't chase him down as far as they wanted to, and, well, they played it appropriately. Again, left side Fire Minions pouring into the base, forcing that occupancy of some members of Cold Llamas. Now right side has some Fire Minions coming forward with it. Again, you know, Fury's maybe not the end-all be-all of this, but if you're looking for contested Fire Giants, it's just not going to happen. I don't think Cold Llamas, especially after that Pyromancer, or that Primal Fury, are going to make a huge difference over there. Pyromancer's online, they're going to be able to get that. The Ward Vision, again, it still amazes me how much Smileyface have going in their favor. I mean, late game, the builds at this point have been static for a little while. The biggest change, I think, has now been that Relic Dagger pickup for Genetics to maybe put him in the fight a little more often, give him that shell a little more often. But that's just helping in terms of defense right now. But Finch, it's so weird. 30,000, almost 30,000 gold separates these two teams. That's, first off, a ridiculous number that I shouldn't ever have to say. But the fact that it is the blink of an eye, one bad fight from Smileyface, if they miss siege one of these Phoenixes, they lose the game. If Cold Llamas defend one of these Phoenixes, they lose the game. And the fact that it's just not necessarily a coin flip, but it feels like it's teetering on that edge, it's ridiculous. I don't know what to expect.
Could certainly still go either direction at this point here at Gormizer. Smileyface have done a much better job now, though, of spreading the map out on these Phoenix sieges, so it feels a little bit more confident to look towards them. They're using Saraga to threaten the structures in the complete opposite lane from where the rest of the team is sieging. They've now brought all the Phoenixes down at least once, so it shouldn't be as hard for them to get up there and crack them one more time here at this point. And Cold Llamas are struggling to get enough damage off from Streak Up in a row for it to matter. He's not getting a ton of shots off on any particular target. They really need a way for this Freya to get a little bit more involved a little bit sooner so that she get that sustained damage out that she's known for, instead of maybe just like a couple of shots here and there.
Well, I'm going to give props where I think they're needed. 60 minutes into a game, Pretty Prime hasn't died once so far. I think that showcases where he has been. And also, again, the safety of his build. I had highlighted a little bit earlier as sometimes maybe taking 1 to 2 extra shots. I don't think I've seen any damage onto this mid laner. And this feels weird to say, but in like half an hour? Like it feels like he's just been chilling back there.
Well, they're looking for Calvin early on. Big crush, though, ends up landing onto Genetics. That pushes him back further. Llamocow trying to keep the squad healthy. Meanwhile, Saraga is threatening mid-Phoenix, so Fails comes over to deal with the Fire Minions on the Titan, and Pretty Prime will have to try and keep this Mercury at bay with his damage. It looks like it works enough. Saraga not willing to ult and commit. Fails takes care of the minions, and now they rejoin. But they got the beads off of E-Chrome. Silence is a little bit more vulnerable now as well, and Maniac is able to find the kills. E-Chrome takes him to the sky, knows how important the snipes are, hits them for damage, but can't find a kill. With Silence dead for 82 seconds, Cold Llamas should have an advantage here if they want to push forward, but they've got to make sure their Phoenix comes up in the right lane, defend this left one as well, before they start thinking about any kind of offense.
Now, 1.5 minutes, which is almost the death timer, that's a lot that you can do in Smite in that amount of time. I mean, especially at this point in the game, Fire Giants falling in a fraction of the time that you're spent dead. I think the same thing for Pyro, for all of these Furies, for all of the buffs that are left alive. Like, I mean, you can control this map and almost clear it in the time that Silence is going to be spending dead here. But there's nothing Cold Llamas can do outside of defend. I mean, they're so worried. I mean, look at that left-hand Phoenix. It virtually has no health. Same thing for right, although it just respawned, so it's going to be healing back up. The Titan, now that all the Phoenixes are respawned, will slowly accrue its health back, which is going to be devastating for Smileyface. But Smileyface are almost at that point where if they feel confident in their ability to get to the Titan room, which it's not easy right now, they can barely step into a Phoenix without losing their lives. But that Titan's not going to last long, Finch. I mean, if you can get past one of
No.
these Phoenixes, which at this point is easy for them, it's going to be a breeze to actually kill the Titan. It's the team fight around it that they have to be worried about. But they have a lot of AoE. I'm almost wondering if Smileyface could just ignore Cold Llamas for a little bit, or at least try to get the Titan kill. There's a lot of CC for Cold Llamas, so it's not going to be anywhere near as clean as you would like, and I think it's too risky. It's almost a high-risk, low-reward. Like, you run in, virtually die, and lose the game, or maybe win the game. It's definitely not the play to make, especially when they have this amount of control. Cold Llamas can't do anything other than defend right now. So just hold on to what you're doing. Grab this Oni Fury pretty soon, and that'll give you some extra pressure across the lanes. Fire Giant will be up a little bit thereafter, so you'll be able to fully put Cold Llamas in at least as hard of a spot as I can think of 60 minutes into the game.
It feels to me almost like the will is what's really being tested here more than anything else, right? Our Cold Llama is going to have the will to keep finding all these defenses time after time after time and patiently waiting for their opportunity when they can finally get on offense, or, you know, will they get ahead of themselves? And what about Smileyface? I mean, they have been very methodically chipping away at this defense from Cold Llamas. They've eventually gotten all three Phoenixes down, made their sieging life a little bit easier. Are they going to be able to continually over time keep doing all the right stuff to eventually break open this base of Cold Llamas? I mean, this is a long time to be playing Smite, and I don't think we've quite put that into perspective yet. 63 minutes of maintaining this high level of focus, of maintaining all of this communication and keeping all those extra distractions out, right, in case of any other things that might be going on right now, and focusing entirely on finding a way to get this win. I mean, it's not the easiest thing in the world, especially if you're Smileyface struggling on these sieges when you might feel like you should have won this game a long time ago if you've been in control of this game for so much of it, that it might be getting more and more frustrating for them every time they get pushed out.
I mean, normally you see a 12,000 gold lead be the big difference maker, right? Like, that's typically the number we get to mention that is the end-all, be-all of sieges. And granted, once you're 60 minutes into the game, I think anything can happen and gold doesn't matter. But still, 34,000 gold, that's a lot. That's a huge number. That's a ridiculous thing, I think, to have to come through. 90-second death timers, it's a different game if you last this long. And that's what I think is almost beautiful about it. And you know what blows my mind more than any of this, Finch? Smileyface still have 3 towers still standing back there. Like, the fact that their base hasn't even been fully broken down is impressive. And maybe oppressive here for Cold Llamas. They can't really leave these Phoenixes to do anything, and now you're having to defend 3 weakened Phoenix against a team with an enhanced Fire Giant.
Serica goes out first, look for the left side Phoenix. Good banish from Streak Up, gets the beads, and they force the disengage with that blink from Fails to close the gap. So Serica now a lot more vulnerable, and he does not have the Sonic Boom, plus they defended the left side Phoenix. That's the Cataclysm out from Genetics, though, as he was looking for the defense. They're doing a 1-3-1 split. E-Chrome threatening right, Serica threatening left, and the remaining members are pushing down mid. And so far, Cold Llamas have answered. Prime gets aggressive with the blink in, looking for the knockup, and that gets the beads and Aegis out from E-Chrome. Smileyface are having to use a lot of relics to spread out and threaten this many Phoenixes at once.
I love Cold Llama's defense, though. It was a 1-2-2 there for a little bit. Now they're all grouped up to get back in, but the CC they have, the damage they have, it works out there. Now they're looking to kill off Silence.
Silence is in some trouble, brought down to half health, but he still has all his relics there, Gorge. That's the important thing for him, is that he was able to hold on to them, unlike Calvin and what E-Chrome were able to do there, which are all forced out, plus the Beach and Serica. Now there's 4 members grouped up in right, and just Serica left alone in left. As they look for the 4-1 split, Calvin has made his way all the way in, but there is no damage to the actual structure. All this damage to the Merlin meant to isolate them, and Lamogao goes up into the ultimate. Serica moves over towards mid, but has to fall back. He's not threatening a structure at any point right now, and Lamogao's ultimate doesn't get that much value.
And Fails is just waiting, especially with Streak Up right behind him. I mean, this is going to be a repeat. Zerica's going to go back in. You don't have the blink this time, but I think Afirno able to lock him down. And Freya, they should get the jungler, but no, Sonic Boom's available. He's out.
And he barely is able to regroup with the rest of the squad. But Prime turns around, puts the damage in, and Serica ends up falling. Calvin a bit isolated too, but able to make it out of there. And yet again, Gore, the left side Phoenix has been taken down. But Serica's dead for so long. Thought you might have been exaggerating at least a little bit with the 90-second death timers, but no, that's how long
95.
they are at this point in the game.
It's It's such a long amount of time. I don't know how to say it otherwise. Like I can't. He's going to be dead, respawn just before that Fury comes up, and that Fury, I don't know. It feels like it was so long ago, and now I mean with Saraga gone, it's maybe opening up this conversation. I don't know. Cold Llamas, this is the first time we've seen them this far away from their base since they picked off Silenced 10, 15, 20 minutes ago. So maybe there's something to it, but I don't know. It feels a little dangerous, Finch.
Yeah, I'm surprised maybe they don't push down left, so they're at least clearing out the firemen at the same time, but maybe that would slow them down too much. They go to mid instead. Cataclysm in the back line does find E-Chrome. The knockup is there too, but Lamogao gets the ultimate back up. And so now he can re-siege by pushing forward. The snipes are coming through from E-Chrome as well, but the Fear No Evil locks down Calvin. Now he's dead for 95 seconds. Plus, it's 24 more seconds on Saraga. Cold Llamas, though, they're not going to end up biting off more than they can chew. They get their pick, they back up, and looks like they're ready to reset up their defense as the backs are coming through.
This is... I don't know if it's phenomenal or abysmal. I'm trying to figure it out. I think it's so great how well Cold Llamas have been playing their defense. I love that they're able to get aggressive there, because what does that 70 seconds left on Calvin do? It buys them time. They've been so successful at one thing, and it is keeping these Phoenixes alive. They are weakened. They are 3 punches from Saraga, a couple of hits from E-Chrome, from dead every single time Smileyface engage here, and yet for some reason Smileyface cannot get more than 2 down at any one time, and it's just the way Cold Llamas are playing it and their composition. I think the way they've split up, I was going to talk about this last time, but then Smileyface got aggressive, much like they're looking to get maybe aggressed on. This time Maniac wants blood.
Looking for E-Chrome, has already gotten the Aegis and the beads out from good use of the ultimate there for Cold Llama. Something has changed for the Cold Llama boys for now. They are the aggressors. They know that Calvin is still down, but they have to worry about those fire minions, as Doug just pointed out, pushing down the left side lane. They're grouped up around the FG. It has just now respawned. If they're going to burn it, they're going to have to do it quickly. They take the Pyromancer right away, but still have not committed onto the actual objective.
What I love about their composition, it works well in team fights. It's been working well for them here, but unfortunately they're going to have to deal with it now that Calvin's back, and they're going to be a man down. It's actually kind of flipped the script onto Cold Llamas. The rest of them can't get out of here. Mogao can get aggressive. This could be an end state for Smileyface if they can find something, but I think Cold Llamas, the CC they have, the peel they have for their team, alongside the damage, I mean, you can leave Streak up in a 1v1, he's going to win. You can put Pretty Prime with Genetics and Maniac with Fails, and they're going to control those 2v2s. But how they do in a 4v5 without the Freya is a completely different story, and Streak Up's coming over here. They're letting that left lane get pushed a little bit because they think it's worth the risk.
Saraga, bottom of the player damage charts. Worth noting that in this late game, he has not been able to find any kind of avenue in for sustained damage on this Mercury. It just has not worked out for them. His best bet is things like this, the objective damage that he provides, the structure damage that he provides, because he is not going to be able to get in there and stick for damage onto these other characters at this point. It's just too threatening to him with this full glass cannon build. That is the Fire Giant down for Smileyface though on all 5 members, but for all the difference it's made for them up to this point, they've had plenty of FGs and still have not been able to siege. I mean, at this point in the game, Cold Llamas somehow hold the kill lead, as it looks like Smileyface will again be grouping up to siege the right side Phoenix.
Well, I think we are in a territory where this is worth mentioning. It's been 3 years for me personally since I've seen a 70-minute Smite game competitively. And so I applaud them for being able to keep this going. The fact that Cold Llamas keep finding this defense, there's no reason that Phoenix should still be standing, and I think Saraga at least does a good job over here on left, but he loses his life!
Yeah, and this is looking like a pretty bad fight for them as well. Silence in the ultimate can't even use it because he'll have to stop moving. Good work just using the mobility and CC immunity to get away, but a great jump fail.
Oh, crush!
Fallen, but Silence takes care of the own bot. It's a 2-for-1 so far in favor of Cold Llamas. Maniac has been kept at bay by Lamogao. Meanwhile, Pretty Prime is still in mid. So Cold Llamas with the left side and right side Phoenix down, even still can't afford to get aggressive. They have to defend their base.
That's a 4v3. It's this awkward moment. You have to defend these fire minions, but at the same time, I kind of want to see Cold Llamas get aggressive. This is maybe the time that they could take some of these Tier 2 towers down, and the fact that we're 71 minutes into the game and I have to talk about Tier 2 towers blows my mind. 2 of them are at half health. if Stray Cup's over here, I mean, they don't necessarily have the best tower destroyers on their squad and, you know, objective siegers for Cold Llamas. But at this point in the game, I don't think it matters who's on your squad and what your composition is. You should be able to burn it down. But they're going for the pick like they did last time. Silence might not make it out of this one.
No, he is dead instantly. Blink Cataclysm sets that up. Calvin and Lamoga get there too late, and they don't have any of their damage dealers left for such a long time. 25 seconds before we see Serica back up. 33 before E-Chrome is back. So Cold Llamas should be able to get some work done with this window. It looks like it'll be the left side where they're sieging. They'll burn that one down quickly, and even still, it's slow work, as you alluded to. But they've got plenty of time to work with it.
Unfortunately for them, it's one of those things. You have a Hunter. If E-Chrome is just swapped places with Streak up there for a second, that tower is gone, and maybe you're able to threaten at least the tier 2 tower as well. As of now, you're about to have to back. You have fire minions pouring into the base once again. Fails is coming up in 5. Maybe they're banking on him to be able to defend this, but it's still at that game state where in, 50 seconds when Silence is back, it's going to be able to potentially run into that Titan room. It's just a little under full health right now. But the Phoenixes are halfway back to respawning. If Cold Llamas have done anything today, it's showcased that they will not roll over easily for you.
No.
And I don't think I have seen a team hold this hard onto a game for this long. It's just amazing from Cold Llamas.
It's impressive, man, the defense they've been able to show here. And just kind of keeping Smileyface at bay. And Smileyface have tried a lot, but I think that they're going to have to find some kind of way to try to get value out of Serica. I mean, we're starting to see the same thing we saw in Game 1, but it's in the late game where you think Mercury would do well. But I think it's kind of a bait, as Serica has to use that Sonic Boom defensively to escape. It is where Mercury does his most damage, but it's also where I think he's the most vulnerable. There's so many relics, there's all these Geb shields, there's so many tools to peel for whoever he tries to go in on that he has not found an opportunity to do any late game damage.
That's why I think I like them using Serica as just left Phoenix killer. That's pretty much been his role the last 30 minutes of gameplay, is just, hey, go over there, kill that thing, and if you can, just distract Streak Up, because Streak Up, you know, was 4-4 and I want to say 7, 4-4 and 8 maybe earlier, and you know, hasn't necessarily been able to make some huge strides. 6-4 now in terms of kills, but both of those I believe have been onto Serica, or at least one of them was, as they defend that left Phoenix. Streak Up has been taken out of the fight because of this jungler, and maybe that's just a small net gain overall for Smileyface, just in terms of, you know, right-hand siege, mid-lane siege. But it's going to need to amount to more than just that, I think, for them, if they want to win the game. Because so far, Cold Llamas, if you lose one member, they don't seem to bat an eye right now. They will still wait it out.
Well, Cold Llamas looked like they were setting up a pincer there for a moment. Still is a ward from Smileyface in the jungle, so this shouldn't catch them too off guard. Yeah, it looks like they're recognizing it now. The Cataclysm gets feeds out from E-Chrome. Lamoga goes up into the ultimate as Calvin's charge prey gets a little value. Serica in some trouble, though. He's being chased out, the lowest member,
kill.
And Streak Up able to get the kill credit for it. And at this point, Smileyface appear to be completely on the retreat. But look at these fire minions. That's the left side Phoenix down, the right side not too far from it. That's why Prime and Streak Up are rotating over to try and defend. Good Banish should keep it alive, as Cold Llamas still can't afford to get aggressive.
They have something playing in their favor, though, right now. I kid you not, triple-digit death timer there for Serica. Started at 100 seconds, and while they are forced to fall back, defend, actually maybe more so than they want to, Fails not being in this fight might cause some trouble for them. They have still a minute left where there's no jungler to worry about. If they can get another kill in this time, I think it just opens the door for Cold Llamas to get aggressive. That Fire Giant would be bigger for Cold Llamas than it is for Smileyface. Smileyface has physical damage to take down objectives, and there's only 3 weakened Phoenixes to get. Those tier 2s still standing would get erased by Cold Llamas with a Fire Giant.
Well, plus, I mean, Smileyface have gotten 7, right? So, I mean, it's hard.
Yeah, that's
for
a
me to
little
think the
unfair. You gotta share them.
It's gonna make that big of a difference. I just really don't think that it is for Smileyface. I agree that it's much more likely to be impactful on the Cold Llama side at this point as they continue to get aggressive. Serica's still gone for another 25 seconds at this point. Just how brutal that those timers can get at this point in the late game. I mean, 75 minutes, approaching 76. We cannot have had a game go this long before. I mean, definitely not the SPLL, but this is SEC, so perhaps we have had one at this point before, but still, I think that this is about as late as a game can go. here at 76 minutes. Cold Llamas are waiting around the corner, though. No one is really on their way. I don't know if this is going to provide that much reward.
Well, they're keeping the waves pushed up. Fails has been kind of a one-man army back there defending these lanes. I feel weird seeing Hunbats of all people back there, but I think everyone else on this team, in fact, all 5 members of Cold Llamas are important for a team fight. But it's what they can try to burn down. If they steal a Fire Giant, if they can just kill Mogao, I think that changes the pace of this game dramatically.
Fire Giant is still low. Crush has already been used, and it's not for the confirmation on the objective. It's being leashed at this point. And Lamogao's just taking a whole bunch of free damage. Lamogao is low, as is Calvin. Streak up able to get that first kill on Lamogao. It's a double kill as he takes care of Serica as well. I'm a Monster comes through. Doesn't find much damage as Maniac cannot quite clean up that kill onto Calvin. But Smileyface at this point are completely on the run. 90 plus seconds before they'll have Lamogao or Serica back to defend. So Cold Llamas finally able to start getting aggressive.
All right, I'm watching it. 87 is when they start this tower. It was at half health. Okay, good. They finally hit the point where towers don't mean anything to them. It took a little while overall, but they have fire. Again, it's a 3v4, but that still is helpful for Smileyface knowing that someone has to be back in base defending.
Good cripple from Echrome. That delayed genetics in the middle of the rollout, but he still wasn't able to get the kill. Calvin goes in for the charge prey. I believe that got the beat up in Pretty Prime. You can tell they're on cooldown, and once they're upgraded, that should be much closer to the cooldown. Just barely able to defend his Maniac there in the back, but you're right, it is very, very low. If you're Cold Llamas, you might have to pull the trigger now. Silence has been taken care of. What about Echrome, though? He's so isolated. They've got Calvin alone in the back line, too, and this fight is so spread out. One is chasing Echrome, the rest is dealing with Calvin,
but
they correctly trust that Streak Up can deal with it. At this point, it's only Echrome left. 105 seconds until we see Calvin again. Echrome goes up with the snipes, just trying to take care of Streak Up or Pretty Prime way in the back of the fight, but the Aegis is too strong. Now Maniac able to use the teleport to rejoin them, and Echrome can't defend it by himself. The mid-Phoenix falls. Fear No Evil guarantees the deicide, and Cold Llamas in 78 actual human minutes are able to take care of the set over Smileyface.
And honestly, things that play out for them in their favor there is actually the length of the game, right? They kill off Mogao so long ago, but the 100+ second death timer had him still at 30 seconds till he respawned there on the Phoenix Siege. So the fact that they were able to burn 70 full seconds throughout all of that, over a minute of gameplay where there's just nothing Mogao can do, he just has to watch in black and white. I mean, it plays out well for Cold Llamas. Again, I don't think I've seen a team hold on to a defense that long in a game until today, and honestly, it paid off for him. Pretty Prime doesn't die the entire time. Genetics died 7 times in the first 40 minutes, and then I think was untouched, essentially, from that moment forward. 58 wards placed. I mean, the numbers are going to be ridiculous. And the fact that, you know, the highlights, everything that came through for at least Cold Llamas, they didn't have a whole lot going on for them for what felt like 30 minutes there outside of defenses.
And I really feel what was restricting Smileyface is that in the late game, basically the only value they were getting out of Serica was in his ability to split push the map, right? I mean, he was not much help in terms of the team fights. He wasn't really putting out any damage. He wasn't even really forcing relics with the sonic booms or the special deliveries. That Mercury pick in neither game really was able to get the value for them that they needed. In the early game, it was good, early to mid, but once they started grouping, it was basically invisible. That left so much pressure on those remaining 4 members to try and carry really the entirety of the load, and they could not outvalue what was happening on the other side from Cold Llamas. It ends up being a 2-0, if you can remember the before times, back when they won Game 1, but I mean, it's so long ago at this point, you'd be forgiven if you could no longer remember it. That does mean that Cold Llamas improved to 3-2, Smileyface remain at 0-5, not being able to find a single game win in that set, but very impressive, though, for what Cold Llamas were able to do to hold on to that game.
Yeah. I think it almost does feel that way. Like, I think there's a good way and maybe an easy way to cop out and say, like, oh man, Smileyface, if you can't siege a Phoenix like that, but there's not much you can do. I think the composition specifically for Cold Llamas was so good under a Phoenix, especially with the layout of the map, that if you try to 5-man push like they did, it's just never going to work out for them. I mean, there were several times we saw them group up on left 5-man strong, and they all lost every single one of those fights.
Well, an impressive win that brings the SCC to its conclusion, but there's plenty more competitive Smite coming your way. It'll be a quick 5-minute break, and we have the SPL coming up next.